Hello, Kiva. Sound check. Everything works? Yes, thank you. The sound exists? Good. Wonderful. So today's topic, yesterday we were talking about energy. Energy and various spiritual practices that are advertised as energy management methods. And oftentimes there is a connection between energy and our today's topic, which is manifestation. Manifestation, manifest anything, is a big chapter in the New Age teachings. Manifestation is a huge thing that exists in Hollywood. It's a topic that is a part of some niche mass media in some ways. So today I would like to talk about manifestation, how to do it a tantric way, how to not end up in the situation in which you are, like in the funny movie, in some comedy, like whose topic is be afraid of your desires, and actually, how do we build the strategy for manifestation? How do we identify what desires of ours are actually hygienic, good desires? Manifestation is something many don't discuss about, but can relate to. Yes, indeed, and it surprises me sometimes how various people open up about it all of a sudden. Because again, I'm coming from scientific environment, and then even there, in the academic environment, you can hear this concept being brought up as well. So it doesn't really depend on where you're from. It doesn't depend what education level you have, what social class you belong to, what your life history is. Manifestation, it is a huge topic that is a little bit niche, but also has more branching into the pop sphere. So thank you, Kiva. Why did I use this kind of sardonic title, manifestation craze, as if I'm like looking down on this? It's because of how widespread and how surfacey the concept of manifestation is being discussed online oftentimes. But not even the way it's discussed, but the way it's being hated usually. I watch so much analytics, so much so-called like hate content perhaps towards people who teach, for example, certain manifestation techniques. And when I watch those hate videos that break down why manifestation is an absolute trash, I always find certain false beliefs, false views on that. And that ends up creating the imagery and associations with manifestation as of something absolutely silly. Like, for example, there will be a product that's called wealth meditation. And people who look at it from a surface level will say that, okay, so you're just sitting like this and visualizing some money tree, and then you become rich. So this is an absolute bullshit. This is absolutely misleading. This is absolutely crazy. And when you hear that, you understand that the person just doesn't understand necessarily what goes into this meditation. New York Da Vinci bricks. Oh, crazy. Hello. So what goes into this manifestation? And tied back to our yesterday's stream about energies, how we need to vibe on the frequency of what we want. Just people watch the movie Secret, and that's the statement, that just vibe on the frequency of what you want. Vibe on the frequency of what you want. What is that vibe? What is that frequency? Do you just create some persistently rotating thoughts in your mind about what you want, like burdening yourself with that desire? Do you constantly wake up and try to set yourself up for this feeling of like, I got this, I got this? What does it mean? What does it all mean? A lot of confusion happens because of a lot of surface level misinterpretation of the process. Another funny thing, by the way, is that most of the characters from the movie Secret, they had pretty not so, how to say, not so favorable destiny, not so favorable fate. And I imagine it was quite weird for those people to come up to the movie Secret and talk about their secret from the position of them having achieved whatever level they had and being pretty level headed with that level. When um, when they look at their path from their new norm, how they look back at that, and then opening up about some secret that they performed. So there are some things that are weird about the movie Secret. And at the same time, there are very weird attitudes surrounding the entire concept of manifestation because of the movie Secret. And there are also weird interpretation of it because of some presentation or the hyper-excited attitude towards manifestation that is being propagated in the society and in the media. Thank you, Jim. Applebee's, no. Last topic, energy kind of ties to this topic. Yes, thank you. So we have this movie, Secret. We have a bunch of new age stuff. Vibe culture, vibe on a frequency. Vibe on the frequency of goals, and so on. So these are the stereotypes that we know about manifestation, with The Secret being one of the most popular movies. And yet, when we look at the fate of people who participated in making it, there are some caveats. So indeed, those people, they ended up in the situation of be afraid of your desires. That is a common scenario for a lot of comedy movies. Hello, Malik. Well, thank you. How are you? So we have those two balancing forces. One is manifest everything you want. On the second half of it, we have on the second scale, we have this be afraid of your desires. And here we have manifest. Either of these can create a lot of neurosis in a person. If you are constantly afraid of your desires, never able to connect with your desires, if you're fully, extremely following this notion, you may simply lose touch with a huge source of inspiration, of driving force in life. You can literally again, live very mediocre life because of some fear associated with that. You're scared of connecting with your most primordial desires. If you generalize your attitude towards desires using this statement, to be afraid of your desires. You know how in comedies, for example, in Interstate 60, there was a character who asked to be able to eat a lot. And the person was given a possibility, be given a skill to eat a lot, but the person lost any appeal to food. The person lost the ability to enjoy what they were eating. So that's a good illustration of that concept, be afraid of your desires. Or there could be an example, somebody's yearning for having a house or something. And then their relative, for example, something happens to their relative and they suddenly inherit this house and they don't even want it anymore because they would want their relative to be alive. So this is this concept, how it can be illustrated. On the other side, we have manifest everything. This can be a source of neurosis, obsession, problems. When a person, for example, listens to things that you're only supposed to be vibing on the frequency of what you want, you need to always be expressing and thinking positive thoughts. You must only be living in that desirable state of mind. You must always just adhere to that. Be positive, speak positive, think positive. This can result in another facet of neurosis that will also, just like this extreme, be afraid of your desires, can lead to suppression of self. And this thing can lead to suppression of self because the world is not just your projection. The world is also a spontaneous system that exists. There's objective reality that exists without your participation. Like with you or without you, there will be a domain of objective reality that just exists. But when you're in total embodiment of this mindset of full manifestation, you stop allowing yourself natural reactions, natural responses to some acts of aggression, for example, or to pushing your boundaries or something. Because again, the world is spontaneous. It's not all under your control. And so when you prohibit yourself some adequate reaction, adequate response to something that comes your way, this also would take this human life and we slice a whole domain out of it. When you're afraid of your desires in this extreme, you're also slicing a huge domain of your vitality, of your driving force. Neither of these approaches are sustainable. Neither of those approaches are helpful. Vibe on the frequency of goals. A person who tries to vibe on the frequency of goals can be feeling guilt for when they, for example, react to something. And they will be scolding the part, the innate some animalistic part, that is still not in that desirable domain yet. They're going to feel guilt for natural reaction to some discomforts. And instead of, for example, studying the discomfort, acknowledging it as a part of their driving force as well, because we can have motivation that is a blooming garden, and another part of the spectrum of motivation is the angry wolf that chases you. This is wolf. So you can have an angry wolf chasing you out of an undesirable situation, or you can see and anticipate being in a pleasant, sunny, beautiful garden. When you feel like you need to vibe on frequency of the goal of everything being good and blissful, you may feel guilty for wanting to run away from a wolf. You may not be able to tap into the resource that's hidden inside of your anger, inside of your natural desire to escape something unfavorable. And Tantra actually helps to tie these two things together. Tantra helps to unify these two parts in a more balanced, in a more graceful, more sustainable fashion, such that you don't have to live an artificial preset life, and at the same time you are not feeling neurotic about your desires by identifying the authentic desires. I'm always positive, think about the good in people. Discomfort is usually avoided, so instead of acknowledge and challenge it. Yes. This lady's out of freaking mind. No, I am quite in my mind, blessed actually. Question, yes. What are we working on today? We're working today on manifestation. And manifestation the tantric way, because such that we don't end up in the situation of a typical comedy scenario when the main conclusion is be afraid of your desires. But at the same time, we're not in the paradigm of completely detaching from our desires and not listening to them and not allowing ourselves to embrace the energy, vital energy that's locked in our desires. So it all will boil down today. It will all funnel to the base principles of Tantra. It will funnel to this unity, authenticity, and having high energy. So, thank you. Would rejection be a part of being afraid of your desires, since it's a fear, yet also involving desire? I remember we had conversation about that before. So, with rejection by someone, rejection from someone, rejection be a part of being afraid of your desires. Yes, it may be if you already, for example, if you desire a relationship, and then or desire a job, or desire, I don't know, you want to sell something to someone, and then you say no, and then yes, you experience the moment of rejection. It is a little bit different side of this when, for example, you think of the possible consequence before you think about what you want to do. That is, you are already afraid of your desires. Yes, it might be considered a facet of that. Yes, because you switch focus from what I want to do and why to, oops, I will be hurt by someone, or oops, there will be some not expectations not met. Yeah, it can be a part of that spectrum. Yes. Hello everyone. So we are balancing between these two things, being a total skeptic and total even more on depressive side of a personality who is afraid of their desires, or the person who is neurotically trying to manifest everything 24/7, trying to be good and feeling guilty when they cannot vibe on that energy. Or when person, for example, goes fully detached from reality, goes fully into some spiritual realm that has nothing, that has no rooting in the environment, that has no rooting in the grounded reality, and through that thing, they are not recognizing the resources that they have. They don't feel themselves in the moment, and perhaps they are not willing to take that first step, because this life of imagination, imagining this goal, may be quite fulfilling, may be quite satisfying for the person. And that also launches some problems, because when we're manifesting anything, it all lies in the plane of action. We cannot just fly out to some cosmic stardust life, live their very wonderful, fulfilling life with our fantasy of I'm so great, so grandiose, so deserving, abundance, la la la. We cannot live there and expect that everything will just come our way on its own. You may have opportunities coming your way, but not the actual physical resources. You may have good chances presented to you. I was thinking of adding an example to it, like a key point next to my notes, so I wanted to make sure it was valid. Yes. Wonderful. So what are we doing with this manifestation principle? And how do we put it all together? Now, any event let's do any event. I hope you're familiar with the mathematical notion. Any event is what? It's some change to environment equals to some change. in environment. So it's some delta that happens in the world. To have that delta, to have that change in the environment, some mass, some energy converts to mass. Mass changes, gets dislocated. If we again fall back to physical notion of that. So it can be delta M, locally delta M, local change of mass, local change of energy. So something gets moved, something gets dislocated. Energy traveled, mass traveled, swapped between them maybe, mass to energy. A lot of people, for example, cooperated on some activity. Some product was made, which means that we live in this closed system, which is Earth and Sun, that gives us energy. So in this closed system of Earth and Sun, we're dealing with recycling of energy, recycling of mass. So this dislocation of mass or dislocation of energy or swapping between mass and energy in context of manifestation indicates that some work was done. Some work was done. So delta E or delta M are equivalent to some work. Transfer of energy, transfer of mass is work. So when we think about manifestation or creation of any event, we're inevitably talking of some work to be done. And this is where our previous topic of energy may come into place. Because if a human, for example, consumes though 2000 calories and ends up being a very crappy conductor of energy, very crappy converter of energy, with a ton of losses, when a person just loses to what? To trauma, to dysfunctional adaptations, automations, to physical tension, then these 2000 calories can be used drastically different to perform this work in different individuals. There will be an individual with more or less good, comfortable existence, with their comfortable and healthy utilization of energy. There can be a human who is bothered by a lot of garbage and wastes this energy, these same 2000 calories a day, will be wasting on coping with absolute crap, like we discussed yesterday. Again, it's stored trauma, dysfunctional automations, and stored tension, physical tension, that spiral up, that create more and more losses the longer the person is coping with them. And we were talking about in the previous streams as well, coping with the problem or solving the problem. Yesterday we were talking about energy losses. Where are they? How do we work with them? So, if we minimize the losses, then the amount of spare energy can increase. The spare energy can go into exercising work, contributing to this closed system. You can take resources from this closed system and turn them partially into work because you have this free disposable energy. And this is step 0 in manifestation. But there's more to it. Because what will a person who is bound by trauma, bound by desire to prove something to someone, bound by the desire to, validate themselves with certain status symbols, what will that person be manifesting? Where will this work go? Will it be strategic? Will it be thought through? Will it be something sustainable? A person who is driven by just natural, authentic desires, what will they be manifesting? Let's figure this out. And how does Tantra play in that? Because when you come to work with a Tantra coach, Tantra therapist, at some point, when we start figuring out your problem, we in general start developing the context of your life. What do you want to change? What changes do you want to introduce into your life? How do you envision your life to be? And so at that point, a person is presented with the task to complete a list of desires. But the person who just comes to Tantra coaching, Tantra therapy, hello from Greece, hello man, nice to see you, hello from New York, the person who just came to Tantra and they're in that dark tunnel of their life that's pressing on them, and the person who is in the middle, for example, of Tantra coaching, and the person who is past Tantra coaching, they're three different people. So the lists of their desires will be quite different. And why is it so? Because as we work, as we go through Tantra coaching, we are relaxing and we start actually accessing our desires. And we also, how can we desire in general? People can desire something that's acutely needed, or something that will solve their problem. But when you have it all, when you feel yourself, when you feel alive, when you feel playful, when you feel more brave, when you feel more bold, what are you going to be desiring? Your desires will be playful. Your desires will be much more light. You will be perhaps more greedy and at the same time not so fearful of your desires. And in the first part, when we had this diagram of this, be afraid of your desires. If you are ridden by fear, if you are ridden by certain concepts, because you are already living in such an anxious environment, you are already so drained, you're so exhausted on a daily basis, you just want peace from that point in your life. When you start living a little bit above, beyond survival, when you start living in more joyous and a more pleasure-oriented environment that you create for yourself, then your desires will transform into coming from the point of curiosity, from the point of play, from the point of what if, which is curiosity, from the point of creative desires. What if I can do it? I can create it. I want to do it. You change your desires. You change the paradigm of your desires, this work that you want to put. From patching something, you start putting it towards, let's say, deficient desire, deficit desire versus creative desire. And what will be the differences here? Deficit desires are survival oriented, survival, peace, safety. When we look at the creative desires, it's play, curiosity, I can do it, so it's more active, able to take responsibility, willing to play. to play. So our desires will transform in their energetic perception, so to speak. And how does Tantra work on that? Remember, we were picturing this dark tunnel, this like super compressed point where everything is just pressing on this human. Just everything is just pressing, limitations, discomfort. You want to just burst out of that, or you want to rise up, or you want to grow out of it. When you are relaxing, when this dot transforms into just a normal, like expansive, expanding self-perception, then we're capable of to accommodate these things. You start feeling yourself that you can actually do it. If here in survival, you literally, it's your priority, it's your internal. Like it feels like you don't have a choice but to just choose the scenarios that just give you some safety, such that you can avoid living with a lot of anxiety. Hence, the desires will be very like, I want to have some like shelter. I want to be hidden. I want to be taken care of. I want to be seen, accepted, recognized, and so on and so forth. Here, you already passed that. In this domain of this play, creative desires, you already have all of that. So your desires become, I want to be doing this, I want to be doing that, I want to inflict this change, I want to inflict that change, I want to be a leader of that, I want to be a doer, I want to be a creator. That's the vibe of coming from this point of deep compression or depression, if you wish. Because prolonged enduring of being compressed with your boundaries, with your desires, does lead to depression. From this compressed, depressed state, we're moving to an expansive state in which my mind is at ease. You are not craving some dead peace. You are craving sailing. You are craving vitality. You are inviting vital force. You are inviting a lot of the emotional charge. You are inviting movement, change. This is what happens here. And moreover, from the state in which you need to defend your boundaries here, because it's a safety measure, you start moving your boundaries upwards, outwards, inflicting change on the environment. Remember how we define that any event is the energy moved or mass moved, or energy transforms into mass, and that requires work. This is when your work is not to protect yourself. The work that you are performing towards manifestation is the work to create. And this is how Tantra can make you a manifester. In which, moreover, from this state, when you look at manifestation, it feels like, oh, manifestation, I will manifest, I will manifest. From the point of trauma, you are going to see manifestation as something crazy. The paradox is that here, manifestation is not even regarded as any concept, because it becomes a part of your life. Go get it done. This is the attitude. This is the feeling. You have the energy, you just go get it done because you want to. You fully embodied your desires, you recognized them. You entered this play machine state of mind and your body. You turned your body also into this healthy, vibrant vessel this machine that can deliver on your ambitions. You take good care of yourself here. And you are capable of just doing things. And there is no magic. There is no obsession with vibes. There is no obsession and self-control. Like, what if I think some negative thought? God forbid, I'll think any negative thought. It will ruin my manifestation. There is no also attachment to the desires. This is another paradox. You don't think, what if this doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? What if I do something wrong and this won't work? What if I'm desiring somehow wrong and it won't come true? There's none of that. The beauty of this method of starting from within is that there is no concept about manifestation. You are just living in accordance to your deepest desires, your genetic maximum, choosing the best for yourself. And you are not worried, what if that doesn't work? What will happen to me? Because you're coming from the place where survival, security are priorities. You're coming from the place of, okay, I can handle it either way. It's a base understanding. But when you're thinking of what you're doing, you're just enjoying the process. And this is the secret. You don't have to watch the movie Secret. The secret is all along inside of you. Do you feel yourself? Do you know yourself? Do you hear your desires? Are you able to relax? What % of time are you feeling fully well? What % of time are you feeling the ecstasy of life? What % of time are you pulsing with this always existing pulse of life, instead of being hung on some traumatic responses, automations that don't work for you anymore? And how much does your body store of that tension? These things are the source of this state when you're just trying to dodge anything that can snap you out of this craved and so hardly achieved balance in life. Time for the chat. Boo, boo, boo. How are you guys doing today, by the way? Chad, hello. Nice to see you. It helps the horse to focus ahead of itself rather to the left or right. Yes, Chad, manifestation today, then. Most people are always looking for a way out of work. I'm talking about physical definition of work. It's not work as in like in the office taking one stack of papers and moving it to the other stack of papers. I'm talking about physical equivalent of work, which is energy transfer or mass transfer. Anything we do is associated with exertion of physical work, as in change of energy. Okay, you're definitely qualified to do my therapy, Uncle Body. Awesome. What about dinosaurs? What about them? They're really good at hiding these days. Is manifestation the same concept behind self-actualization and Maslow's hierarchy of needs? I don't know. They're played a possum for so long they're not good. How do you fuel a positive feedback loop? Positive feedback loop we're fueling through the practice. We actually engage, we create an intentional space for practice. You want to learn a new skill. My favorite tool for that is a timer. You're taking a timer, you're setting it for 1-2 minutes, however much time it's comfortable for you to focus on something or to be with something. 1 minute. And you are fully immersing yourself in the state, in the sensation. You're focusing on some sensation. You are doing certain different action that you want to nurture in place of your previous automations. You are performing this, having outsourced time control to the timer. and having outsourced the creation of controllable environment to the timer and your dedication. So you explain it to yourself rationally that this is our 1 minute of when I only need to focus on this one thing. You give yourself a task, and then the rest is your experience. And then you are giving your brain fuel. You give your brain a new feedback loop. Then you increase the time. Then you increase the frequency of this practice, and that comes on its own. Yes, I know myself, Karan. Amazing. I always loved a woman with Russian accent. I'd say that's my desire. Poo-poo-poo. I want to be happy on life, but don't Trump, okay? I like how you spelled his first name. I don't know too much about manifestation, but I do remember in Tantra it's mentioned in step 5. Okay, 13 steps of Tantra, guys, watching that video. I was talking about goals. Justin said hello. And distractions. It's always a choice. I'm just scrolling. Most people always, okay. Talking about goals. I want to catch a long-term goal, aka a conscious choice that requires forward thinking. It's the distraction of, or distracted thinking is the way people look for ways out of the goal. Papoon, hello. Hi, son, I guess. The distractions of distracted thinking is the way people look for ways out of the goal. What is that distraction? What is the distraction? Because a lot of people will not be able to handle people who live in this state. For them, keeping their focus on the goal, and generally living in the paradigm of the goal, creates an extra point of anxiety. Imagine this person has barely manages their life right now. They're very torn. They are super exhausted. They live in anxiety, and you want them to keep focus on a goal. Moreover, they introduce usually from this point of thinking, it's not that they are living here and just naturally doing what they're doing. Not here. They're living here, and you introduce them concept of a goal that further pushes them to new source of anxiety. What will a person in that depleted state do? The moment they can, they will want to dump as many responsibilities as they possibly can. Because responsibility, it's a lot of times that you're like, they're so irresponsible, they cannot handle themselves. They're incapable of handling themselves. Oftentimes, inability to take responsibility is a result of some learned bad behavior, some non-functional behavior. So this person only knows how to not take responsibility, or how to take responsibility and fail, how to take responsibility and get so deadly tired that of course they won't want to do it. Because they took responsibility for something that they were not supposed to be taking. For example, children who live with infantile parents. We have video on infantilism in relationships, but relationships are most of our life, so it's much broader term of relationships than even some intimate relationships. So I have video on that, I have live stream that's infantilism in relationships. So the person cannot focus on that goal for very natural reasons. And the whole concept of goal is unique to that state. When you live in this state, yes, there are objectives. For example, you want to track how well you are. For example, you want to do something. You have certain genetic predisposition for doing certain things. But to do those certain things efficiently and to maximize the time and reward for doing that, you build some business structure, for example. So you are an artist, but you need to build a business structure in order for you to be able to keep being an artist and live in the world. So when we build this business structure, this is when we have objectives. We have some milestones that we want to hit. We want to see our progression. We want to plot a graph, for example, how my income scales, how much my sales scale, which marketing strategy worked and which didn't. Then we have milestones. But your artistic path is always a path. It's always your natural breathing in, breathing out. So damn cute. Thank you, Scooter. Uh, Poo-poo. Many sleep or hunger things that require temperance. Now, so this temperance, this willpower, is also applied when there's something unsustainable happening in life. And how much of this compromise a person is willing to take. With the diet, ladies who try to slim down, they're like filling themselves on those vegetables, scraping their gut all the time, removing all nutrition without being digested. And they're like always hungry, and they're like, what is the nutrition bar? Some nutritional bar without calories, so like sugar replacement, some stuff like that. They need willpower to push this diet onto themselves without having the basics fulfilled. So instead of eating a more sustainable diet, they are on a diet that requires them to exercise some insane willpower. So they have this double hit. They're not only malnourished, they're also stressed on top of that. So it creates this stupid stack. Malnourished and also exhausted from all the stress from poor diet. And they call this willpower. It must be hard. If it's real, it must be hard. That's the mindset that we have in the society. For example, when you're reading or something and you feel tired and you can choose to focus rather than to choose to sit it out, there is a good technique that I will propose to you. So, when you are approaching anything, when you are approaching any habit, first of all, in this moment, in your excellent example, you have a choice, right? So you're reading, something, let's say you need to increase your level of expertise. Or you decided that you're reading in some foreign language to solidify your knowledge of language and practice. So when you're reading in that process, you have a choice. Keep reading. You have a choice to, for example, fall asleep. Fall asleep. Snack. Scroll. Etc. So there is always this choice of what you want to do. You're producing a cognitive response in your brain to fulfill either of these things. And how to keep reading and why to keep reading. This is usually, this moment of this choice should call you for exercising awareness first. Why am I reading right now? What is it for? If I stop reading right now, what will happen? Do I really want to snack? Do I really want to scroll? If I scroll, what will happen? If I fall asleep, maybe I truly need to sleep. And it will be counterproductive to not sleep in that moment. For instance, if I stop reading right now and choose to do this thing, I'm not only going to not be reading, I'm also going to fuel some, let's say, bad habit, which is instant gratification activities such as snacking or scrolling. So this is the moment of invitation of awareness here. But then what technique I wanted to propose you? The technique is the following. For example, you made for yourself a task to build a new habit. I want to start reading before bed. Reading is inherently not so hard. Scrolling is easier. But reading was always a thing that was used for entertainment. It was not so hard. But nevertheless, you need to retrain your brain to find fulfillment in reading. This is how it works. This is what habit means. You teach your brain to get enjoyment from reading. When you are just approaching it, in Tantra we approach it the following way. You create a dedicated domain with ease in which you are outsourcing all controls, outsourcing all judgments, outsourcing all tension to the controlled environment, and you're telling to yourself, what's the comfortable amount of time I can read? Okay, 5 minutes is comfortable time. Let's go for 5 minutes. I'm going to read. After the expiration of 5 minutes, you do one more page plus 1 page. or one paragraph, whatever is comfortable. And that will feel like 100 times more achievement than just having completed just 5 minutes. And that will trick your brain into reading, because you fed your brain super achievement now. You did not only what you promised you will do, you did the extra. And it feels like major success because of how our mind works. So this is how we do it. We agree with ourselves that there's controllable, comfortable environment for 5 minutes, or however much is comfortable for you right now. But then I do plus 1 page, I do plus 1 paragraph, and I get the rush of dopamine because I am doing so well. I'm doing such a great job. I exceeded and superseded. So I'm so excellent. And that will give you the similar rush to the scrolling, because it will be this, but it will be without any side effects. It will not be like quick sugar rush. It will be a pretty sustainable, slow release achievement, actual achievement. So it's always experimental. Every day is not always the same. We have to adapt to it. Learning to adapt every day rather than being caught off guard is good. Yes, exactly, Justin. That's what we do in Tantra. We're training our nervous system to be able to handle life, not to hide from life, and not to, go like into some craziness necessarily. So that's the practice. If you are building a new habit, trick yourself into, first of all, I make a contract with myself, only 5 minutes, 2 minutes, new habit, it's a serious deal. And then plus 1 page, plus 1 paragraph. And this way, because the mistake of some people may be that, I'm going to start reading is a great example. I'm going to start reading now. And then they open a book and they power through, pushing their sleep, using bathroom. They put their entire body in stress to get this super achievement with this first wave of motivation. This like mega motivation fuels them up to read this like 200 pages in one night, sacrifice sleep. What will their brain remember? For them, it will be like, wow, I'm such a hero. What does their brain and body remember? They remember that they were mistreated, they were fatigued, they were incredibly stressed, they were in the state of sacrifice. Will your body and brain want you to do this again? Hell no. You will have the fear, something inside of you will want to just close to this idea. And next time you grab a book, on the one hand, you will feel like you already had a super achievement. Imagine how it works. I already had a super achievement. That we always want to beat. You want to beat this achievement, but then at the same time, plus stress. So this combination will make it absolutely impossible for you to develop a new habit. You already had set the standard, so it sets the bar. Oops. And at the same time, this bar is associated with physical stress. It's an antagonist of being able to do anything in a sustainable, long-term fashion. Yeah, you have to adapt to it. Every day has challenges, and we expect it and just adapt to it. I'll try to catch you off guard, Justin. Living in moderation takes discipline. True discipline comes from within. The best thing is discipline without discipline. That's what we're talking about. When you naturalize behaviors. Because when again, every new habit is a stress. Every new habit is pushing your boundaries a little bit. This lack of familiarity plays a huge role. And also, working with new information is energetically expensive as well. You need to build new neuron connections. You need to build new relationships between your brain and muscles, for example, if it's something execution based. You need to, sometimes you need to overcome things. For example, you will take on leadership role. And actually, I have a very cool live stream about dedication, from sacrifice to devotion. Sacrifice to devotion, it's called, not dedication. You take on a leadership role. When you imagine leadership, you imagine a person who manages a huge corporation. Make something your pet first, something little. And then move on as you see the feedback, as you start receiving the feedback from that. And there are tools, yes, to remove the super achievement in the beginning. Avoid this stress. You are acting free, you're coming from within. Your comfort, you're coming from within of what's comfortable for your body right now in the moment to handle. And brain is a part of the body too. Chad wants to be more disciplined and less lazy. We need to look at the roots of laziness, Chad. We cannot just take laziness. Your laziness is protecting you from something. Laziness is a very interesting concept, because what does your laziness protect you from? What's the function of your laziness? Laziness is the barrier, so something that you want. And then there is this huge barrier of laziness. It's kind of supposed to be a brick wall to achieving it. Why? So there might be some interesting roots to that. And that's not about discipline. It's not about just once or twice and then crash because you did it out of the resources that you didn't have, because laziness may be the indication that there are resources that might be necessary for that. So it's better to ease into things. It is better to ease into things, but be methodical with that. So that's the value, for example, of working with someone, is when you have methodical approach to easing into things. Because also, it's not even just easing into things. There also, remember, we're doing practices in which, what this laziness example, right? With laziness, what if there is part of you that you haven't contacted with yet that is capable of approaching things with more ease? What if that is the answer? And yes, easing into things is something where you're starting. Because if you live in this state that we started with initially, compressed, depressed, easing into things might be the only way you can start growing out of this little dot into your new scope of possibilities. So it requires comprehensive work on many areas. Why do you think men go silent during an argument? We have to choose between honesty, saying what they want to hear, and logic, but always lose, so silence is how we cope with preserving happiness. So why do you think men go silent during an argument? It's also not just men. There are women who go silent. There are wonderful couples who can be silent for years. So I wouldn't do gender-based I wouldn't do necessarily gender split. I would say some people go silent during an argument, okay? Such that we don't attach it with gender attributions and some like socially forced upon gender roles. So that's just to set the ground here. So some people go silent during an argument because they see, for example, there's cyclical behavior. They see that the cycle doesn't lead anywhere. They already said certain things. They already empirically verified that whatever they say will not lead anywhere. So they're observing a cyclical behavior. They feel like their investment of energy will only push it on another cycle, another evolution of this cycle. They don't have energy to spare there. It's not about logic. the only logical decision in that sense, in that case, is to withdraw yourself from the cyclical behavior. And silence may be one of the mechanisms. So, but I tend to just turn it all off without call when I get home. But I used to be less lazy and still drink a lot. Okay. Tend to just turn it all off without call when I get home. I like how you say tend. It's very good. Tend is like, again, remember we're making a choice to do it. We're making a choice. Now I want to reinforce that thing. And used to be less lazy. It's still, we're on the hunt for something. We're on the hunt for this thing, Chad. But the first step, remember I was emphasizing this. Like, what is this thing that requires all of that? Because there's complex. You see, there is solitude, alcohol. There is wanting affection, alcohol. Wanting to be not lazy, alcohol. So there are a lot of things that go and to feed into this thing. And we can discuss it in more detail perhaps, maybe in the second half of the stream. So manifestation isn't real though. When? So we need to agree on definitions here. When? I think that, I don't know if when you joined. Did you just join? Like this verse. Know that which run race but receive the prize, so run, you may obtain. It's like when you cross the starting line of a race, you run and don't look back. Yeah, it's actually a very cool feeling. Yes, I was working with someone. I have a service, I want to quit veganism. And I was working with a person, and they were quitting. And one of the things that I propose was this visualization of how you just, as you described, you accept the inevitability of you running the race. So you accepted it. It's like jumping off the rock into the sea. You know that the only way is through. That's actually my motto. The only way is through. When you commit to something, the only way is through. That's it. So, when? Chad, it's all cool. Keep your things. What I need to turn off is anxiety, despair, depression. What I want you to do, Chad, if you have any notes, if you can just type them somewhere, or you can send them to me in the email, actually. I can look at them, such that we don't drift away from manifesting, because we have some discussions happening right now on the topic. I hope that's okay with you. It's temporary, so. Okay, so manifesting is putting into something and betting results in return. It's not how that works in the real world. So when we talked about this concept, how you can manifest from that I am this compressed thing who bet so much on that goal, through the point of anxiety, through the point of wish, through the point of I'll do it, I'll squeeze myself more and I'll do it, it will happen, or it will happen. Or you put some spiritual weight on that, it will be given, it will work out. As opposed to you build yourself into a harmonious, grounded, expansive, pleasure-ridden, comfortable, authentic self, and then the concept of manifestation diffuses completely. So there's no weight, there's no betting on it. You are just doing what feels authentic to you, which is in alignment with your authentic desires. And in that sense, what may be similar to manifestation and goal setting and achievement is when you're doing something, but you, for example, build a business framework for it, some organized system, and then you monitor milestones, for example. But because you're acting, because you're connecting with your nature, you do not need to have a milestone to being in your nature. You are in the process now. So whatever we think of as manifestation is loses its value because you know that you're doing things that you're enjoying. Why would I care about some there and then? You know, you identify some lack, for example, in your life. But you just start naturally from the point of this comfort and I can do it. What if? It will be fun, actually. Let's experiment. Let's try it out. From this perspective, you're like, okay, I can, for example, find a way to make this happen. But your life is has the background of fun. It has background of play. It has a background of just do it. The whole trick is to let the energy flow through you. Just flow through you into action. You healthify yourself, and physically and mentally, and you become this creator. And life becomes again this flow of energy in and out. You start feeling this life ecstasy, life pulse. Okay, understand now. It's similar to the principle of Taoism, which focuses on going with the current of water instead of going against it. I didn't know it was Taoism, but that was the analogy that I was giving. Imagine people sometimes they have identities, beliefs, certain like traumatic responses, traumatic adaptations, and they're like, and they're trying to hold on to this branch. Imagine river, and there's some, I don't know, there's like river going, and there's some like branch sticking out in the water, and the river is like flowing, and the person is just trying to hold on to this, to this stick, not allowing themselves to be living with the stream of life. So that's how it feels, pretty much. Yeah. Instead, what we do, we learn to swim with the river. We learn to surf in the waves. We develop our mental apparatus. We develop our body because they're indivisible. Body and mind are indivisible. And we learn to actually enjoy the fun. Because now we have a strength. We know what to do with this river. And we're not trying to like resist it with panic. Liked Elon. Thank you, Elon. True. Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page when. Bombsy AI or Bombsy L. Thank you so much for your contribution. Very grateful. Do you have any questions that we can discuss? Do you get anxiety? Sometimes, yes, but I have tools to work on it. You know how anxious I can become when I'm sewing? It's not even anxiety, it's just like because sometimes when you're sewing and there's like some empty bobbin pin, for example, and you had the perfect seam. Of course there will be frustration. Or sometimes there's also some, it's not anxiety, it's some itch. I'm like, for example, in bed, but I can't sleep because I'm like, how can I implement this design? How can I implement this design? What can I... And also sometimes I have ideas for my streams, for my lectures, for my work with the clients, and I'm like, well, I need to do it, how to do it, blah, blah, blah. So there is, of course, my kind of anxiety is largely overwhelmed with ideas, oftentimes. So that requires me, how I work with that anxiety, I need to adjust my lifestyle, my schedule usually, to be able to fit more. So that's where my discipline comes into play, because I realize that I either live with anxiety of that dissatisfaction, or I change something about my life. I insist, I like go and tell everyone that I insist that this is happening now, in this way. I make a declaration, and I follow that. I start implementing things. Sometimes it's not a momentary process. Sometimes it requires adaptation. But when this energy comes, I learned, and was the most beautiful lesson of the recent time. Oh, sorry. It was one of the most beautiful lessons of the recent time, that it's much cheaper for me to take on this leadership and change something without trying to be convenient, without trying to be necessarily like doubting this thing, giving myself an option. It's just very energetically expensive to live with that electricity. And then also, yeah, this topic of social anxiety is familiar for me as well. When I don't have resource, when I'm, for example, underslept, or when there is like accumulation of events, that's also my work in progress, to be able to handle people that I don't necessarily enjoy hang out with, for example. So that's my other side, my other stream of work. To find that resource, to enforce this resource, to be able to gracefully and without any internal feelings, without any tightness, just be myself in the environment with others who trigger something in me, for example. I analyze the triggers and I do the same practices that I give to people in those moments, and that really helps. About practice, by the way, we did practice with Lise last Friday in the stream. So how do you know something is truly for your life force? That's a great question. And that actually was something a part of this today's talk. Let's see other... I don't like your voice, but maybe you can stand up and turn around, Thief said. Thief, stand up and leave. Leave the classroom, please. Or I will leave you from the chat. So, we have a question. How do you actually know that something is truly for your life force? Let's work on that. It's an excellent moment. I'm very happy that you asked this question, because that's exactly what I was intending on talking about. But we kind of took a couple of detours that were really helpful, I think. So, well, what's up? Oh, it's my fancy dress here. Okay. Now that we're all on the same page with what manifestation constitutes, what are authentic desires? Being incredibly passionate, for example, about having some vehicle. What's behind that vehicle? Being incredibly passionate and neurotic about weight loss, for example. Somebody was talking about weight loss idea. For example, someone really wants to lose weight. Is it an authentic desire? In itself, it may be an authentic desire. But usually when a person, for example, tries to lose weight or beautify themselves, oftentimes it signals Kuzya, my dog. Oftentimes it signals that person already was kind of detached from their body. So behind this example of wanting to lose weight, there might be an urge to feel better, to start feeling life, to start feeling their body. That will be an authentic desire. Expansive. Because one of the criteria of authentic desires is whether they are close-ended or open-ended. Nobody cares to just buy a hammer. Like, I super passionately want a hammer, or like a toolbox for construction. Like, I terribly want to own a toolbox for construction. That's my like crazy idea. Hardly anyone besides some fetishists or people who collect things will passionately want to get the toolbox. When I was buying my sewing machine, I didn't care about the fact of sewing machine. I cared about the creative possibilities that the sewing machine was opening to me. And this is what differentiates close-ended goals and open-ended goals. Close-ended goal is that I purchase sewing machine. I want to purchase sewing machine. Someone wants to lose weight. Someone wants to find a partner. I just terribly want to find a partner. Like terribly want to find a partner. That's a close-ended goal. Close-ended perception. Because you found a partner and what? Are you like this insect catching plant? Found partner, closed and digested. What's happening next? So open-ended goals is when your desire is associated with some further life, further creative expansion, further ways of enjoying life. And in such, for example, losing that weight for a person can be a way that they're going to be able to enjoy intimacy with someone. They're going to enjoy more physical freedom. And as I give this example in many of my streams, the person wants to lose weight. The most charged aspect of that weight loss is that their idea of how they are running freely in some beautiful clothing along the seashore with their loved one, and then they fall in the sand and they make love in this beautiful nocturnal landscape on the beach. So they have that freedom, that idea, and then they have this ecstasy of love. They are focusing on that ecstatic, romantic, or loving experience that follows this close-ended goal or desire to lose that weight. So we're not focusing on this close-ended thing that is usually strenuous, that is not motivating at all. We're focusing on the open-ended thing. So that's the first criterion when we are identifying our desires. How it works in general, how to work with desires. Right now, everyone can, of course, don't leave the live stream, please. But everyone can go open either a notebook or they can open Google Sheets, Google Docs, whatever you have. And you can start writing. Give yourself a task to write down like 50, 100, 200 desires, just what you want. Starting from the basic ones. I want a little bit like cold water right now. My personal desire would be to cool off a little bit. You can start from scanning your body. Some person may want to loosen the drawstring on their pants right now or unzip them because the pants have been pressing on the belly for the entire day. They're actually fatigued. So the first thing we do, we go to the body and we identify all of the desires. When you scan your body, you keep going with your desires. Because the body is always the best starting point for everything. Body is the clearest tool that we can always connect with through discomfort, through identifying discomfort. I want to sit more comfortably. Let me sit more comfortably. You write the desires that you can satisfy right now. Now your desire muscle starts warming up. Your brain starts thinking in this regime. And you start writing something, whatever comes to your mind. What do you want? What do I want? What do I want? You ask this question over and over and over and over. Populate this list. And when it starts being hard, you can go into your imagination and you can start imagining things. What would be cool to have? What would be cool to do? And the focus when we search authentic desires, usually close-ended desires, they are material. They are something just instrumental. Material, instrumental, something about your body image changes. Open-ended ones, they are associated with do. And this is what. So there's this difference here. What do you want to do? What would be cool to do? Maybe you want to operate an airplane. Maybe you want to be a pilot. You can go in your imagination and think, what would be cool to do? And you populate this list. Then what qualities of your personality would you want to be familiar with and start using? What would you want to discover in yourself? How do you want to be? What's necessary for this do? Then later you may think from the do, you may think about the traits of your personality. How? Through which means, through which resource inside? This is your personality traits, personality feelings, or how do I feel? Let's do even not how, but feel. Ties to this. Feel. How do I feel there? What freedoms I have? How do I actually live? How do I feel this life? That's what you need to also write there, and that also will be populating more or less authentic things. But do we need to worry about closed-ended versus open-ended when you populate the list? Probably not. It's better just go into the flow without any constraints. And then you just do the sorting work, identifying OE, open-ended, or you're identifying closed-ended, CE. And then another thing, when you populated your list of desires, what is the next step in this work? In the next step of this work, you will be surprised, but likely you will have some desires that are repeated. You have desires that are on the same domain. They're sitting on the same domain. And those will be the desires of very strong relevance for you. Something that's associated with something deep that you have been sabotaging. So you need to probably select what's convenient. That's why I'm encouraging to do it in Google Sheets, because you can color code the desires that are in the same domain. So we can do this very methodic work. Let's write an algorithm. I will set here authentic desires. The work that we do with desires for our manifestation, so-called manifestation work, you can do color coding, by domain, code close-ended versus open-ended. See how many of those, and also how close-ended are related to open-ended. What do you strive to achieve with close-ended goals in terms of open-ended goals? Then, what repeats? You know what I had in my year ago? In my wish list? I had this repeated thing of I want creative expression, freedom of creative expression. That was literally the thing. It was the time after I completed my ex-vegan study. I was on my YouTube and I felt like, God, I cannot do this vegan stuff anymore, because nutrition in general, in its form, because I was like, there's literally just a handful of foods that are suitable for consumption. And also people do this tribalism with what diets they cling on to. It forms this rigidity. And ex-vegan work is also contingent on something existing, which is veganism. And I could care less about working in this field. And it just felt like I was in some close-ended bubble. And I felt like it was not moving anywhere. And at the same time, I was craving creative expression. I was craving that freedom. Something in me was not aligned properly. I felt like I go and I talk and it's like, it's through some resistance. And so when I was revisiting my wish list, when I was in Tantra, when I first was working, when I first was learning, taking the course, I was like, creative expression, freedom of creative expression, then ease and creativity, and just like very strong creative flow. That was my craving. It was repeated 3 times in a list of, I think I wrote 50 in total of things initially. So it was really funny. And then when I work with my clients, they also have those patterns. And you can tell what pain they have by looking at those desires, what repeats. For example, what I saw was marriage. Want this marriage. Wedding, marriage, because there was a problem of not feeling accepted, not feeling comfortable in relationship, in the sense that it was not a claimed relationship. It was not a secure environment. So there was this demand for being claimed, being secured, knowing that your partner won't run away. So that was the craving that was behind this desire of formalizing relationship, basically. So that was a trend. Then there is a trend of, why is it I want to not feel pain? I will not feel pain. I will not feel pain. So there is some pain, mental, like spiritual pain or soul pain, whatever you feel, psychological pain. And there's this like, this very like twisted thing, a very twisted scenario, where there is not even a domain for feeling joy. So the person was not even able to voice what they want. because they lived in the domain of everything that they didn't want. So that's another interesting diagnostic thing when you're writing that. See what you don't want. Why are you not able to voice the opposite? And that's actually, I'm very happy I remembered about that example from my practice. Don't wants. Because the person was not able to formulate what they want because they did not know how to want. So their wish list was don't wants. And see where you have those don't wants. This is the therapeutic target, how to formulate what's in place of that. You don't want that, but what do you want? So that's another analytical point. Maybe I'll think about something else. Thank you, Zikor Palfa. Putin, Russia, Trump, cheeseburger, USA, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. Sure. I want to enter the realm of non-experience and being engulfed by the void of nothingness. Repeated desired or inheritance traumas. I don't know where we were in that, actually. Thank you, Corey Freeman. Thank you so much for your contribution. Heather Sam is afraid of women. All of them, or some specific one. Hello, everyone. This makes sense for Win. Excellent, thank you. Are you a teacher or professor for your job? I am a Tantra coach, Tantra therapist, but there was period of time, pretty extensive period of time when I was a teacher. When I was teaching children at some point, I was a private tutor in a family of many kids, very wealthy family, and they just hired me as a teacher in many subjects, and also I was bringing kids to the galleries. We just had conversations, so I was like more, had like this diverse work, and also gave them some artistic education and whatnot. So it was quite interesting. And then when I was in my grad school, I was also teaching students. I had it wasn't like I was teaching a class. I was teaching rather the art of academic work. So that's what I was working on. And then when I was coincidentally, when I moved to corporate job, I also was a consultant, and also I was not only teaching students, I was also doing a technology transfer, which was weekly or bi-weekly 5-hour long sessions of Q&A on the technology, because we're working with people who are establishing a company based on certain research, and we needed to communicate to them as many details as possible about our work, including the foundation of that physical foundation, because they did not have the theoretical background in that. So we were actually showing them what we were doing and the data, the technology, and then we're in Russia, no, in the US. But we also needed to teach them, educate them on what's behind that, physics-wise, such that we can communicate to them what are the possible constraints and expectations that they may have healthily. So that was the work, and I was performing these bi-weekly things, part in the lab, part at the board, whiteboard, showing them what we were doing. She's a Tantra coach, not a Bible study. Exactly, that's me. Thank you, Anthony. You look like you're 31, David. Great, it's very nice. I don't know how 31 looks. It's a spectrum. So I don't know what 31 looks like. When open, be more of an allowance for lattice level reintegration. What? Of the desire or inherited trauma. Brian Valencia, I lost context. I'm sorry about that. I cannot continue on that. Hello, Ruben. She sells hair products. I do, Great Tone. I do sell hair products. Everyone, please purchase Pacifica hair conditioner. Smells wonderfully, tropically. Pineapple leaves your hair very lustrous and brushing really well for wavy hair. Fantastic choice. So everyone, please buy them. I get 16% commission from every purchase. David, God, are you, David? You are. It's such an entertaining topic. You're talking to a person with such a plethora of knowledge, such an interesting experience, and all you want to know is the age. Like, imagine that. Oh, Corey Freeman, I cannot. Keep going, Morgan iPhone. So we were on manifestation and identifying what are our authentic desires. That's people who are following along. Please drop some, I don't know, banana in the chat. So we have working. We've identified what are our physical desires right now. How can we feel what our body needs? That's the entry to this practice. Then we start thinking, what else do I want in my life? What deficits do I want to cover in my life? And we keep writing it. Then we start going into our imagination plane when we kind of warm up and we can desire more. So we wrote this list and we go and identify all of our desires. How do we identify the desires now? How do we work with them? We identify what are closed-ended desires, what are open-ended desires. And we can use our table or our whatever we have, and we can color code our desires by domain. What domain? For example, I have desires in relationships. I have desires in my career, in my creative development. I have desires in my social life. I have desires in my, intimate personal life. I have desires in my sexual life. I have desires in some acquisitions or experiences that I want. So we color code them by domain. Then we identify closed-ended desires and open-ended desires, and we're trying to see for every closed-ended desire, I am identifying what are the open-ended desires that correspond to fulfillment of this closed-ended desire. Then what repeats, we identify what patterns repeat. And through this list, you can see so many interesting things. And then we need to see don't wants. What made in this list? Because at some point you may feel like, I don't want this. You may feel this element of rebellion at some point. What do you not want? And how to replace it with want. So we worked on our desires. But how to come to this authenticity? Where is my friend? Where's my friend? Win was asking about this. Now, how do I know that what I want right now is my authentic desire? Maybe I would desire more if I was in some different situation in life. Of course you would. That's why we keep working on this list from time to time. We go back to that. And interestingly, when we work through Tantra, I mentioned that in the beginning, we have several phases, like before we start practicing, before we start regulating ourselves, before we come to some optimized state, we have one list of desires. Then we start performing practice, we start performing meditations, we regulate our nervous system, we become calmer, more relaxed, more chill, we have better like grip on life, we know that we can. We go to the list of desires and we revisit it. That's a part actually of 13 Steps of Tantra, where we were tracking progress. I don't remember if I mentioned that in the video, that when we can revisit our list of desires. And then we can gradually move from this desire-oriented thing. You will not even notice how your desires will start incorporating, and the habit of fulfilling them will start getting incorporated into your life. As you yourself move towards your authenticity, embodied self. Who has energy to do? Who has energy to have fun? Whose fears are less prominent than the desire to have fun, or at least whose fears are balanced by the desire to have fun, to enjoy life, because now you know how to enjoy life. When we do tantric work, we come from the domain of what? Before Tantra, we have a domain of exercise, stress, anxiety, dullness, dull life, dullness, numbness. We drift towards the field that may have all of these. This is our domain A. This is domain A. But also we have pleasure, joy, vibrance, and so on. So you get the point. We're not fully getting rid of this thing. We are having that, but our domain grows, our domain of experiences grows. So when you come to this field, this is when your desire muscles will start working much better. And through this, you will be able to incorporate gradually, because this frees a lot of resource. You become a doer. Just do it. Just do it. In a fluid fashion. So, how does it feel to be the smartest one in the room? I don't know. Ask yourself. Kiva, any questions? My strongest desire is to find an intelligent, young, beautiful woman. I'm going, and the same bottom man. Lack of an optimized state is in my way, and not sober. Morgan iPhone. Then need to make yourself open to enjoying life and being relaxed nervous system. Without this, what do we have? Suffering? I think so. So yeah, my strongest desire, when we have the symptom, is to having the strongest desire for some object there and then. There's like intelligent woman there and then, constituting the strongest desire. That's already, if you have, by the way, another important thing is to track whether you have the strongest desire there and then. That's a symptom that, yes, indeed, we need to go back to our internal work. And as whatever you said, everything you said is pretty much true. Yes, we need to do internal work to be able to just take it, to have it. Such that for you it doesn't feel like a huge effort to travel this across the space, to that space and time, to that there and then. If it appears like so, then it is a problem. It's a symptom. How to become that for whom it's not something there and then. How to become such that you can just choose take it or not. Or when it's just like comes effortlessly. And with relationships, it's not that relationships are not, for example, building a castle. Building a castle is indeed a work that you put bricks on. Finding a partner is when you have normal exposure to society, to have normal exposure to options, or some exposure to options, is not a particularly strenuous task, which means that the whole scope of limitations often lies inside of us. So it's more of a psychological issue, as opposed to the issue, for example, of when you build a house, you may need more resources, like physical resource, acquisition of resources. When you're building a house, you need some more physical strain, or need to hire people. So it can become this big project of many resources. When you're talking about relationships, or certain freedoms in general, it's hardly on the plane of needing to employ a bunch of resources, having to strain something. It's not that we're straining something. We're instead relaxing to it. It's because it's a very natural thing. You don't strain yourself when you're eating food. You're not straining yourself when you're breathing. Some people do strain themselves when they're breathing. But when you have to strain yourself to do these natural things, this means that there is a dysfunction. But relationships but they're pleasant, they're natural, they're most encouraged natural behaviors. Being in relationship, being intimate with someone. So strain there implies that there is some metaphysical thing going on, or psychophysical thing going on, that is a barrier, artificial barrier in a sense. Hello again, Rich. Hello. Everything manifests out of the silence. Pretty general statement. We're going through recipe today. You're a beautiful artist. Thank you so much, Ephraim. So then ambition beyond being over-dramatized, desired, or an inherent programming. Ambition, now I don't know if it's inherited. Of course it can be inherited programming. It can be, it can be your survival strategy to be ambitious. It can be your temperament. Over-dramatized when it becomes the mechanism, either you are very ambitious, very pushy, or you are very anxious and like you need to choose between the two, then it's a dysfunction. Having ambition and being able to apply ambition where it belongs is a healthy behavior. Having an ambition and being like unable to relax, just being pushy, that's an unhealthy behavior because you don't get yourself rest. You cannot embrace different facets of life. You cannot feel life. You cannot enjoy life outside of your race towards your ambition. I don't think everyone in my life is stupid, just least and ignorant. Ignorance is not an insult. No, that also, people sometimes they think thoughts, but they don't express the thoughts. Sometimes thoughts are scary to think. It requires liberty to even think everything you want. If you listen to yourself, you probably have internal censorship that does not allow you to think certain things. Like yesterday, somebody left a comment under the highlight from the yesterday's live stream about that, traumatized, la la la. I hope that you will love yourself and so on and so forth. Because I was showing an example of some thoughts on behalf of parents that sound really unsettling for people. So there is lack of permission to even allow certain thoughts to happen. So when I show those behaviors, when I voice what happens in the heads of certain parents or certain people in general in certain situations, because they're so socially unacceptable, there's such a taboo, people are not willing to accept that this can be even thought. That the fact that you are capable of saying that indicates that something is wrong. It's terrifying. But it exists. There are dark sides of our mind. And again, having liberty to think inside of you even is something that you need to allow yourself to do. But because we have so much exposure to media programming, it is indeed a difficult task. Like a system of consciousness within consciousness. Sure. I'll learn from you. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you, Morgan. What is topic? Everything is a mirror of who you are. Nothing changes when you're looking outside of yourself. Looking versus doing. Things change when you're doing outside of yourself. Actually change the event. How we stated in the beginning, the event, any event, is a movement of energy, movement of mass, or transformation of energy into mass, or back or mass to energy. That's the event, any event that happens in the environment. So the change implies work. And work, you can be mechanical, thermodynamic work, and people can argue, for example, electromagnetic work, electromagnetic transfer through, for example, some thought. But no, it's not. The world is very inert. The world is largely what people usually care about usually is operated at the mechanical speeds, in the mechanical scales, or maybe thermodynamic scale, not necessarily electromagnetic scale. So when we talk about events, it is transfer of energy. It's actual work, physical work. And when you work on yourself, what you do, you make yourself capable of performing this work without it feeling like a chore. Because when you're working from this domain, when your life is filled with stress, anxiety, dullness, numbness, you ask yourself, tell yourself, go do some job, go do something fun, go do something creative. Haha. From this point, it will feel like a chore. It will deepen you in your stress, anxiety, dullness, numbness. Because it will be associated with re-traumatization of yourself. When you change yourself to having joy, pleasure, vibrance, relaxation in your life as the predominant, or at least aspects that are balancing the stress, anxiety, dullness, numbness. This is when you're able to perform this work. Yesterday live stream we talked about the energy. Energy ties to that. There's nothing metaphysical about it. Again, for most pros in the world, we're dealing with very measurable things. Nothing mystical there. Clear your brain. Clear and heal how your body regulates. And now suddenly you're capable of so much more. And everything feels easy. Or not easy, at least doable. Also watch my live stream about hard life, easy life. Should I set a goal to marry you? That's an interesting one. You should answer this question yourself. You shouldn't make me a parental figure. Take responsibility for your decisions. I'm going to use your service as a coach as soon as I sell my land. Okay, good luck on your trade. It's the people you spend the most time with. I would rather build a castle in the middle of nowhere than constantly have to experience exposure to society. Society, it's an umbrella term. We always talk about which society. Society has its domains. Example, yes, people have made intimacy cheap. They replaced love with lust. Love with lust? I don't know. I think lust is primary. Love is artificial. Lust is primary. Lust is actually very natural. It was not replaced with anything. Lust is a primordial thing. It's maybe you work with shadow. Try to, if you have this strong idea, legalizing lust for you may be a very powerful tool for you, because it can unlock a lot of the potential in you, even outside of the domain of relationships, love, and sexuality. Because the sexual energy that is split between some higher sexual energy and some lower sexual energy, that actually takes toll on a lot of people. So if you integrate them somehow, you may find some very beautiful things about yourself. So lust, love, sexuality, maybe think about it, Zibubu. A lot of people in your chart wants to marry you for some reason. I don't know why, David. I don't know. I'm in general. I don't know. Always was attracting men specifically to marry me. That's an interesting one. I'm not surprised at all. I thought about drinking beer. Went to the refrigerator. There it is. Magic. I manifested it. Thank you, Kiva, so much. Thank you for your contribution. And yes, everyone liked the chat or liked the stream. Now back to focusing, Kiva. Как ты, professor? Can you tell? Chat is crazy for there only being 17 people. Good community. Router space, you would make a lovely model. I'm a model? Thank you. You read Stoicism books? No, I don't like Stoicism. I don't think it's a people can do these things. I think it's just they have like a preference, an extreme preference. So much of life now is a choice more than it ever has been. Depends on for whom. There's so many lonely Western men. It's really sad to see men so desperate. You see a girl in your life, you would say, let's get after a woman. I went from staying into the victim mold until finally at 26 claiming my autonomy and standing up conflict. I was traumatized as a kid, so avoid until now. Nice work. Wow, internal censorship is something I've never heard. My roommates have that conservatism. I'm really glad I stumbled upon this. I'm glad people like you exist. Thank you so much. I'm also happy that you're joining our community. J. Montagne, 61. Thank you so much. Standing up for yourself after being traumatized can be very liberating. Yeah, the great tone. Remember, we're conducting this practice, not conducting, but discussing this practice of legalizing aggression and actually expressing, playing the cartoon and performing this practice with body, with voice, with everything in a controllable environment in which we can replay the scenario in which we would want that revenge. Before we start doing in this like, la la la, everyone's forgiven. I love this class too, yeah. When you start speaking what you actually feel or think, that's the ultimate freedom, even if it does offend people. Also have emotional awareness to correct yourself if you feel the person took it bad. That's one thing, but then another important thing in communication discussed that actually really cool concept. Something that I came to understand sometime after, I probably should have, and that's a huge lesson that I received relatively recently. Tiers of communication. When it's just unconscious exchange, reacting, impulse, then on the next tier, when you become more aware, you realize what system you're working with. Remember, we're talking about short-circuited systems, we're talking about cyclical systems in which there's always like some swapping of who is victim, who is offender, who is what. And then you realize that, okay, this is a cycle. This is a system. You identify the system. You realize that it's no point of donating your energy to the system. So you start feeling perhaps withdrawn from that thing. You start withdrawing and observing what happens. Withdrawing. And then in the third stage of this communication, when you realize that the system or people are dysfunctional, after you learn to withdraw emotionally, you learn to curate the conversation. You don't care to such extent, but you want to, for example, create a network with these people who you know they will be just running in those cycles eternally. But you need to, for example, keep diplomatic relationships with them. You just curate the conversations. You identify the topics that they enjoy. You don't care anyways, but the vibes will be good. So that's the hierarchy of communication with people who you have to, for example, communicate for diplomacy purposes, but I don't necessarily care to be intimately connected with them, as in donating energy to their systems. Francisco, hello. Meg, Morgan, iPhone, you got to be the man you are in reality, which you are in your spiritual mind first, to find a woman like her. Even if you have everything, you need to show it. You show it, yes, you show it and act on it. The whole domain of your life, predominantly, should be appropriate for that. Should be suitable for that. It's a good advice. Show it and exercise it. And exercising, remember, exercising, this is not a scary thing. I don't want you to feel intimidated. We always start here. We start here from mini domain where we exercise in a controllable fashion, exercise new behavior for 1 minute at a time. Then we grow this domain, then we grow this domain, then we grow this domain. So it's a gradual work in which you just grow comfortable with your new role that you want to embrace. Don't mix up lust with primitive energy. Actually, me and waitress who ended up presenting me had this primitive spark, but because my workforce turned on me, she ended up following the group. Would you attend the Diddy party if you... Thank you, Daniel. Kiva, thank you. I have bachelor's in physics. Yes, I do have bachelor's in physics and PhD in engineering. One second. I need to turn off something on the stove real quick. I'm back. So, Jay Montan, you're welcome. Yes, it is, and it's also post-traumatic growth, where when you start confronting the monster you've built in your psyche, it unlocks this idealized version of yourself that you desired. I've seen some videos here and there over the years of Jordan Peterson, but other than that, it took years of philosophies and ultimately accepting the truth of my base reality. I was raised by narcs. That's crazy. Arctic Circle, hello from the top of the world. That's cool. I was past the Arctic Circle in Apatite. It's near Murmansk. I was also raised by two narcs. My father died last year, and my mother gave everything to my spoiled brat niece after 53 years of putting up with two narcs and doing that crappy things they needed done. Yeah, she can cook. Yes, I have a piece of meat boiling on the stove. I do, by the way, I buy chuck roast, like big chunk of meat. I boil it with onion halved, like, and black pepper. Boils itself. Then you add salt and such. And then the broth is fantastically beautiful meal. And the meat you can do so much with. You can shred it, pull it apart, blend it like with pepper and onion, for example. Add some coconut aminos for flavor. Fantastic. There's so many cool things you can do with that. Really delicious. Can hear Marinki Kuzia walking around in the background. Yeah. How will being with someone else solve how you feel within yourself, Morgan? So we got into this topic right now. Let's do manifestation. So we identified our true desires. What do we do for them when we analyzed our table? Now we know the priority list. We have little exercises. The first thing to start exercising on your desires is, as I mentioned earlier, but maybe I didn't make it a point of accent and put an accent on it, is first we start working on easy to achieve things. As in the physical ones. For instance, physical ones. We wrote this list in which we have this physical desires, physical comfort. What does this step accomplish? When we are starting to fulfill our easy to achieve things, it may have an incredible impact on your quality of life. How many people live in uncomfortable clothing? How many people endure poor temperature regime in their home? How do they live without proper sleep schedule, without proper proper permission, proper ritual, proper arrangement for good sleep? They're putting up, because of some automations, they're putting up with a lot of things that are physically uncomfortable. How many people will be scrolling the phone wanting to pee, for example, but they're not going to pee? They're sabotaging their body on a continuous basis every day. There is this trend. It will prioritize anything over, for example, taking this little step towards your body's comfort as using the bathroom. So many people live in this sabotage. So we start with easy to achieve things, physical desires. Find yourself comfortable garments. Find yourself comfortable temperature, humidity regime in your house. Find yourself a ritual where you will be drifting to sleep. Stretch before bed if you feel some tension in your body, some stiffness. Massage yourself out. Stretch out. Maybe start being mindful. Okay, if set an alarm, if you are at work, set a silent alarm and sit on your phone where you have, for example, every hour you have an alarm that reminds you, asks you question, are you comfortable? Do you need to use bathroom? Do you want to change your pose? Do you want to stand up and move? Set this alarm for yourself, or practice it perhaps on the weekend. Practice that. Satisfy your physical needs. The most attainable, but the most vital things. Maybe you are thirsty. Maybe you are craving some food, specific food. Maybe some healthy, rich food you're craving. Satisfy these. Show to your brain that the signal that it gives, I desire something. Hello, I desire something. That you hear it, you can fulfill it, instead of shutting it down. Because a lot of the problems is you sabotaging your vital needs, your vital signals. You want to rest, but you're taking an energy drink and you're going to the gym. But you want to rest and recover. You don't want to do the strenuous workout. You want to do a mild workout with stretching. But you will take an energy drink, you will completely ignore everything that your body tells you, and you're going to exert yourself, coming and going, digging into reserves of your body, exhausting your body beyond its capabilities. That alone will be a revolutionary change, because your brain will realize that, oh, what I am signaling is not bullshit. What I'm signaling is actually legit. Because otherwise, you're training your brain that what it's signaling is bullshit. You live in actionable gaslighting. The signal comes from the body, from the mind. You're like, nah, it's not worthy. What's worthy is what this lady did last Saturday with that hot boy. Or some drama. I'm not going to use bathroom right now because there's drama. So what are you teaching to your mind? The most prominent physical desires don't matter. Some drama. Oh, on the other hand, insanely important. Question yourself, why? But primarily, before you question, start doing this. Reading signals of your body. How important is that? If you only knew. When my favorite wolf's example, one of the typical examples that I give, sexual trauma. The woman doesn't want to engage in intimacy, but she should. She believes that she should. She has to. Without figuring out the traumatic response, she forces herself in a sexual activity on the traumatizing scenario, on the base of a traumatizing scenario. She did not listen to her body. She listened to some concept out there, some belief system. Her body is screaming, it's painful, it's undesirable. We shouldn't do this. We should take a step back and figure it out. No. Force it. Let's force it. And this is the manifestation of the systemic attitude of self-sabotage. I don't hear my desires. And our body is the best starting point to do this. Say no. For example, if you are in that scenario, you feel like the scenario keeps building up to repeating the same traumatizing event, to repeating the same pattern. Say no and say yes to choosing, how can I give myself comfort and pleasure? How can I be forward with my body? Revolutionary practice. Revolutionary. I promise you. Forbidden enigma. Very wise. Very enigmatic. Thank you. French, German, Swedish, and English. Mostly German. Nice. Nice to meet you. Emily in Paris, is that you? Are you comfortable sharing nationality? Russian, but I mean, my origins are not Russian fully. For it's less than 50% Russian, and then mostly Polish and Ukrainian also. How good is your Spanish? My Spanish is very mediocre. You get used to being depressed. Exactly. That's the consequence of that. Exactly. That's the consequence of that self-repression that starts often with the body. So the exercise for you guys is set the timer. Also, I love timers. Yes. Set the timer for 5 minutes and listen to your body. Scan it. What do your toes want? Foot fetishists, are you still here? What do your toes want? What does your heel want? What does your ankle want? What does your calf want? The knee, the hips, the pelvic floor, the pelvis, the sides, the lower back, the belly, and further on. Scan your entire body, every body part, and see what they want. What type of touch do they want? Do they want to be interacted with? Do they want to be positioned differently? Do they want to be released? Do they want to be breathed in? Breathe. Is breathe a regular verb, by the way? Ben. Hi, baby. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Can women seek external security even if they have a good partner? Of course, everyone can seek external security even if they have a good partner, because our partner is not necessarily our bodyguard. Our partner is not necessarily the guarantor of full financial stability, of our general life stability, because our love relationships, they occupy intimate relationships with a partner, they occupy just a domain. We'll be moving on that. So there is whole pie chart of things. In relationships, they occupy just some domain of life. There is a huge domain that comprises internal life, and then external life with the world, me and the world. And in those domains, you can have a lot of scenarios in which you will need to find security elsewhere. Your partner has nothing to do with these things. Your parent did have a lot to do with these things. That's a parent-child relationship. Parent-child relationship. That's where they have an influence on your external world. Parent is there to come protect you from some situations out there. Parent is there to come help you work with your emotions and your internal life. And then parent is there to ensure that your relationships with the parent are safe, if it's a good parent. So that's a parent-child bond. When we are in partnership, because when we grow, ideally, watch my video on infantilism and the childishness, infantilism and relationships. Ideally, the parent gradually makes you capable, helps you to become capable of feeling security in the external world, teaching you how to be secure in the external world. Then we have institutions in place that are supposed to provide some security. But you yourself must be proactive on that. So with that in mind, it's normal to seek security elsewhere, especially if partnership is not safe for a woman. If she feels that part of her, for example, is attached to the partner, but part of her feels like it's unsafe. It's unsafe. So unconsciously, she will be seeking safety somewhere because it's a vital need for a human. Let me see. Since they're supposed to be their ruling emotional security, it would be unfair. Well, wouldn't make that unfair and disloyal. Now, what's disloyal about it? What is external security then? You think that she will be hopping from one man to another man in pursuit of security? As in, this is bad parent, this will be better parent. Bad parents, hypervigilance, yes, and that's something that's very worth working on. But it's also a superpower in the sense that you can have. So you can functionalize it, but you know there is a difference between being hypervigilant and making it ruling you and just having it as a tool. Because being able to war operate in crisis is a super skill. If you also functionalize, imagine Zabulu, if you have hypervigilance and you also embark on leadership path, that's a super combo. Because you can, if you, instead of being ruled by hypervigilance, if you functionalize it as a tool plus the leadership, then you become an unbreakable leader. It's a superpower. What happens often is that hypervigilance turns a person like living in a pressure cooker when they feel that they cannot act, like they cannot do this expensive move. So it's actually perfect for pattern recognition and tactical assertions. Yes, it is, indeed. Русский, yeah, I speak Russian and I also learn Italian. What very basic knowledge of French, very basic knowledge of Spanish. Not even worth tapping into that. Parents are not there, unfortunately, now with a bad woman. Yeah, you cannot tell your parent, but you can have your internal parent to identify that this is a bad female, bad person. Don't like save yourself from it. Save yourself from that situation, or find a way to not be affected by it. But yeah, parents will not come and just do it for you, unless there's some weird situation going on. Chad, I see only message that is but, then hug me and kiss me after. Let me see. Oh, I want a beautiful woman to hit me as hard as she can on the side of my face and spit on me, telling me I am garbage. But then hug me and kiss me after. That's a very interesting fantasy. And thank you for sharing it vulnerably here. That's an interesting thing to analyze. I feel the intensity of emotion in that. It's that's a very interesting swing and very intense indeed. Very intense, very deep. I can feel it for you. I can feel where you're going with that. Yes, it can be used as a powerful asset as well as the opposite, hypervigilance. Trump administration just proposed autonomous AI homeschooling teachers. Yes, I said somewhere that technology increases the split between the elites and people who are not even elites, but people who think and who are more strategic, and people who are less strategic, who are more instant gratification. So there will be a huge, even bigger abyss between those two groups of people, I think, with implementation of very fast access technology. It will be interesting. That's why soon we'll have gatherings in person. We'll have those underground clubs where people will be gathering specifically to interact in person. Only thing keeping me going is the thought or possibility of finding a caring, cute, kind woman to help take care of me and grow all together. Where would you want to take care for yourself better? Definitely not Gleb. Let's think about it. Where do you ignore your needs? And where you would want to take better care for yourself? That's the step one that I would propose. The people who go homeschool don't like modern technology for the most part. Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I feel like they will be in public schools too soon. So it's homeschooling is, I mean, for media, the media content must be interesting. Media content must be captivating. So that's why they put those attack things when they put absurdity basically in their narration in order for the media content to be more captivating. That's, I think, what it is. Yeah, she does online coaching indeed. Any car giveaway. How do you have this much knowledge about a lot of things, and by any chance a professor? I do have advanced degree, yes, but it's also being curious. I like thinking, I like researching. So it's a habit that leads to accumulating knowledge eventually. But some things I wish I knew more about certain systems, because I sometimes feel limited in my knowledge of finance and economics, for example, because it's such an abstract field and it requires very advanced thinking. I love abstractions and abstract thinking and multi-level abstractions because they challenge my brain really strongly. But then it's a really, some things, yeah, I mean, you need to be motivated to do them. But sometimes, yeah, again, the field of finance and economics are fascinating that I haven't embraced in my life. The third type of person is the ones who can see the end goal and benefits but not think it's worth it. Then it's not the goal if it's not worth it. I try to eat good, but sometimes I forget to eat all day. One meal a day or all at once isn't good. Okay, definitely no glep. Let's think more. What else? Where else you do self-sabotage, even like on physical or some daily routine level? Let's think about it. Prepare a whole list, perhaps. Would be wonderful if you identify those things, because there's like specific keyword of care, the desire to receive care. So let's think about it. We're not discussing God here, anything associated with religions, spirituality, unless I feel like it. But it's rare nowadays because I mean, it's very sensitive. It's so deep topic to me, and it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking about. Surprisingly, even though for some people it appears spiritual or whatever, the topic of God we kind of seem to be able to dodge at all times. It doesn't have any relevance to what I'm doing, and that's a part of my intimate life. I hardly ever discuss this topic with anyone, and there's a lot of religious propaganda that happens in my live streams. So that's something that we also made a rule that we're not discussing. But God goes to that exact domain as well, but for different reason, because it's too intimate. Just as like I'm not going to discuss my intimate life, my personal life, certain like sensitive topics with the public. Topic of God and all of these things, they also belong to that domain. I hope that we got this clear. I would have been successful if I never left England. I moved back to live with my father, and within 2 years he stabbed me, and I was okay, sure. But how can you take better care of yourself? Chad was homeschooled until 6th grade. Not to make excuses, but I would have been so much more successful if I grew up anywhere but US. Other countries have better education and discipline. That may be true, maybe not, but I mean, that's a given. What you have now, it's a given. So when you recognize that what you have is a given already, that can free a lot of energy actually, because another thing that can help you revisit this idea is the fact that the world is changing rapidly. There's so many trends, there's so many shifts that are happening in the world. That education may become certain education may become irrelevant. that certain experiences may become outdated. But your flexibility, your ability to learn and constantly develop, move with the stream of life, will be the most powerful asset. And what do you need to be able to move with the stream of life and learn new things? You need to accept everything that you have as a given, to get rid of that burden. You would have. Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you would be a different person. Why dwell on that? It's happened. It's a fact. It's happened. It's a scientific fact. What you have right now is a scientific fact. Observable, scientific, measurable fact. It's happened. It's done. What is in your creative hands and your creative power right now is what will happen, is what will come next. There is some domain that you can affect and influence with your actions. And the skills that you have now that can help you is the sense of ease, freedom, flexibility, ability to learn, accept new information. And to accept new information, you need to let go of some burdens as well. So think about it this way. Maybe we will find better, more sense of ease through this idea. Self-sabotage is common. It is. Indeed, it is. And there are very interesting reasons to that in every case. I respect your opinion and your boundaries. Thank you so much, Debuzabu. In general, everyone, whatever boundaries you have, if you feel uncomfortable talking about certain things, if I, for example, talk to you, then voice them out. The details and nature amaze me. My girlfriend doesn't like to stop and look when we bushwalk. She says it scares her, the patterns. It's an interesting one, actually. That's an interesting one. Did you ask her why? I started buying whey powder and nutrient drinks to replace the meals I don't eat. Sure, definitely, Gleb. What else? Where else do we have self-sabotage? People say the patterns in nature are detailed, precise, complex, which provides validation, provides validation to God. I disagree. Nature is its own entity, while God its own. And God, I don't know, God to me. In Naruto's, thank you so much for your contribution, is an us. It's actually a very good point. What I want to say about it is when we face very complex systems, they may appear very sophisticated. And we can read it as just as, right now, I imagine owning and managing the company of 40,000 people. I can't fathom this system. I did not exercise the skill of working with this big network of things. And so it requires some training to start working with certain patterns, with with higher complexity systems. And that is achieved through methodical education, for example. When you study physics, you study the world from big picture, from mechanical picture to more detailed picture. Because imagine like this marker, it's a single object for mechanics, for kinetics. It's just a single object. If I look at it from a distance and try to draw its trajectory, it will be a point. It will not make sense to me to even consider it to be a rod. Then, as I study physics, I start reading this marker as a rod. Now, when I try to paint its trajectory, or if I make it slide on the table, I will need to consider its circular shape, that has certain momentum, that it has length. I can use it as a lever. So there is more complexity. Now, when I go to thermodynamics, I need to now consider that it's composed of molecules. That molecules bounce around, that they have certain oscillation there, depending on the temperature in the room, in the marker. If I heat this marker, for example, it will have certain exchange with the environment. So now I have vast system of molecules that are connected there. I can go further. I can go into atomic physics. Then I can go to nuclear physics and consider the mere nucleus. Then I can consider elementary particles. So this marker, we can break it down into the waves depending on the model that's relevant for us. So when you study those systems, you get introduced to them gradually. You start seeing, okay, this is one type of law. Then I can increase complexity, the other type of laws. And what's nice is that people usually, pattern recognition is our desire to ascribe some law to the phenomena that we're observing. So when we see a pattern, it means that we can create a law, we can create a formula, something universal. On the one hand, it's good. On the other hand, we need to be very mindful about on which basis do we formulate this model. What is the applicability range of this model? As in, atomic physics model will not be very efficient for us to just track this marker moving like rolling over the table. But it will be highly inefficient for us, perhaps, to consider this marker from the perspective of oscillating molecules when we want to see the dynamics that are happening inside of the molecules. We won't care about oscillations of those molecules in some thermodynamic approximation. So we need to be very mindful about what model applies where. And then we can start working with the patterns. Just like in Tantra, everything boils down to the same principles. We have little domain in which we get familiar with the new phenomenon. And then when we change this domain, then we increase this domain. And it gives us this variability of our perception and comfort instead of feeling intimidated. So if your girl is actually having this as some form of neurosis, perhaps, that affects her quality of life, you can start introducing certain like pattern play, perhaps, if you would want to experiment with that. As long as you have AI, libraries and internet learning is available. Depends if your parents are willing to move in that direction. Yeah, that's, I guess, in response to some regrets about education. I'm getting used to it a lot. Also easier. Okay, way power. Boundaries, yes, thank you. Thank you, Ralph. I think the human mind goes a lot deeper than we realize, and this fact makes people credit this to God. But maybe this complexity is simply us. No human mind went as far as inventing the concept of God. So, there must be some property that makes humans crave it, connect with it. The fact that everything is always moving on a molecular level is mind-blowing. Yes, but it also can be intimidating, especially if you are, for example, given a task to compute something on that level. That's like 10 to the power of 23. Interacting with that is really hard without mathematical models. And by creating God, you take away from the real thing, which is ourselves. Can we not be a spiritual being without anything extra, like religion, God, belief system? I simply am. Why the need for... I would say so, okay? You experience their spiritual experiences, but obviously it's difficult to try and convince or to try and make people think it's legit. Understand it could be perceived as a crazy person. When I was born, the population of Earth was 3 billion people. We're nearly 3x that number now. In a short period of time, I've created people that are above and below misunderstood and above understood intelligence. God requires belief, and belief is a direct obstacle towards truth. If someone believes they know, holding an answer from someone else, why would they search? Truth dies before it can be seen. Interesting perspective. Should I subscribe to you, John? Absolutely. You should subscribe to me. Okay, sir, we're on the God topic. You guys can figure it out, but we need to move on with, we call it not donation, we call it contributions. How beautiful. It's a devotion, it's a contribution, guys. Let's reframe it. So, the next thing in this manifestation with work with those desires, when we start exercising, hearing the needs of our body and exercising, actually taking forward actions to help our body be comfortable, we go and start seeing what are other next easy thing to do. Maybe there are some desires like, I want to have a blog online. A lot of people have a blog, but they want to be seen. They want to have social media. They want to post something, but they're scared. Why would I? So we go and we increase complexity by one step. and see which desires are you comfortable with executing. What are you comfortable with? What are you comfortable with? So you're identifying next level of complexity. What are you comfortable with? And start doing some steps towards that. If you wanted to have a blog, easy example. I guess I'm attracting suppressed narcissists usually for my practice, so that's something that I work with a lot. That's why this example. You want to have a blog. What can you do for that? Make a video. Make a beautiful video. If you want to post something, make a beautiful photo. Set up your environment in a way that you can take a beautiful photo that will correspond to your standards. Then take a step, for example, and post it. All of that is accompanied. This is not just go get it done, of course. There is some element here of mental work as well. When we're balancing between certain fears and our desire to get it done. And this is where tantric work with dominance comes in handy. When I have this dominant fear, dominant reaction, how can I divert my mind from focusing on this inhibition to the ease? And that's where we work with dominance, as we discussed in previous live streams. Direct this mental force into going, getting it done. Then there are breathing practices, there are somatic practices that can help you activate. For example, you do certain practice and then you make a devotion to the practice that in the end, when I raise my energy, there are two groups of practices that can do that. You raise your energy with an intention. The moment practice ends, you are still in that state of practice, but you're going, and without thinking, you're just going and getting it done. So there are some aiding tools, tantric tools, that allow you to hop over this barrier, or to not see this barrier, tunnel through this barrier. You just tunnel right through, or you'll raise your energy such that you go over the barrier. So these tantric tools allow you to do that. And in the 13 steps of Tantra, there are breathing exercises that I don't necessarily show because they are custom made usually. They're custom made, they can generalize, but better when they're custom made. And there are practices for facets of your sexuality, or facets of your libido, facets of your vitality practice that can help you work with those desires that are more complex. You start already when you relax, when we're on the first step, we start listening to our body, we do some practice for relaxation, we start embodying ourselves gradually, we're moving along. A lot of energy releases already. So you can introduce those practices, start directing this energy, harvesting it and directing it, and for very precise goals with devotion in mind. So you can conduct a practice in advance, learn the state that is necessary, that is capable of taking this barrier, tunneling through this barrier, not notice this barrier, and you're doing what it is you want. So this is how we work with tantric tools. And then you keep increasing the complexity of your desires, trying, sampling them. And at the same time, if you're concurrently working on your tantric development, on your embodiment, you gradually stop relying on the list of your desires. And what happens is that you start embodying the life in accordance to your desires. And we remember we have open-ended desires that are creative action-based. So that's how we work on manifestation using Tantra. And then, as I said, the goal is to dissolve the concept, the attachment to the idea of manifesting something there and then. The paradox here is that manifestation loses its relevance as a concept, as a standalone concept, bearing some potential. Where are we? It's hard to decide that belief in a higher power is cultural or primal. Okay, so this is there's so many steps and improvements I need to make to be a viable lover, and then after all of that, I'm not sure how to navigate meeting women who would like me. They're all Chad. They're all part of the same complex, because you see this part of you speaking that, imagine, there's lack, so there's void. You're thinking from the perspective of a void. So your thinking is from the perspective of that void. That's why, as in manifestation, you know how a person with huge oppression, they try to manifest something. It feels like an extra burdenous goal, something with extreme potential ascribed to it. When you are relaxing, it dissolves the need. The same situation I see in your concern, that there's so much to do, so much to power through, and in the end, I don't even know. It's a strenuous path. So you're coming from the feeling, from the lifestyle of strain, oppression, strain, being beaten up, squeezed in a sense, or feeling empty at the same time, so that you cannot, as what we discussed today, you cannot connect with that desire freely, playfully, as it's like, what if? Haha, let's just try. That's why the work comes from not even feeling this strain or stress, trying to find a way to not even push yourself to finding ease. It's an oxymoron. You're not pushing yourself to find ease or pushing yourself to relax. You need to find a pathway to just find your relaxed self and keep nurturing it. Relaxed self. You know how you can have two conflicting types of persona in you, or several types of persona. There could be one, your default state, and there could be something happened. You're feeding this persona a lot with recycling of this tension. You are basically how I talked with the example of sexual trauma. That's the same attitude when you're re-traumatizing yourself. You're feeding this aspect, but this aspect is not being fed. It still exists in you. It's just not fed. So what we do, we need to start feeding this thing such that it grows and develops. We're not taking this tension here and putting it here. Oof! No, we're not doing that. It's a little bit different. It's an exit expansion, and you basically look like it's, and then you exit, you let it go, you find this moment in you, this ease, and then you keep sitting in it, you keep nurturing it. Okay, I can do it. You keep exercising, it's possible. Okay, sure. And then from this position of ease, you're no longer inside of this. You can choose to go here or here, because it's ease. It's comfortable waiting room. And you can start choosing, okay, I want to nurture this facet of myself better. And you keep deepening your relaxation. You keep trusting more because you keep exercising. Your body remembers the feedback loop. And eventually, this relaxation domain will grow big enough for you to, again, swallow this domain. It will exist still. But this domain will be much bigger. So there's a danger to certain types of coaching that push motivation. For example, you come to them like everything's so hard in life, and they tell you, just do this executive move, like just go, get it done, push it, push it, push it. And you can get their energy, for example, from that coaching. That blip of super energy, super motivation, go execute something, then you're not prepared for feedback from the environment. You don't have a resource on your own, you don't have a sustainable resource to deal with the consequence of this motivation. It's a major crash because the consequence will hit you and also drop in energy will hit you. So we're not pushing it. No point even in dwelling on these women there and then, on you there and then. You exist now. Life is now. Fifth River Rat, thank you so much. How do you feel about ASMR? I feel like that's how I learned how to meditate. ASMR is very weird. There are hardly any sounds that I find particularly engaging, but also it's hard for me because I love, for example, sound of rocks and water rolling. And that sound, it causes me to want to eat. Makes me want to eat them. So I have this desire to consume this. Whatever gives me pleasant, specifically sensation, I want to consume those things. It's the same thing I have with crystals. I really love polished rocks, like quartz, for example, because it's so cold and smooth. I love them to touch, but I don't know what to do with them because my instinct is to fill the bathtub with them, lay in them, and then eat them. Because it's like, I don't know why I have this association, why this mechanism works on me. So ASMR is weird, I don't know. I didn't move from Poland to Russia. My family, my great-grandparents, I think, were either deported or moved voluntarily to Asia. And then my parents went to school in Russia. And then I was born there. Jordan Peterson? No, it's not. I don't like Jordan Peterson. Kiva, nice, thank you. Are you scamming people? No, I'm not. I'm very open about the services that I offer, and I'm open about what my values are and what I'm about. So no, I'm not scamming anybody. You don't like Jordan Peterson? No, I don't like Jordan Peterson. Motivation gives weight to desires, reinforces them, and gives wheels to the conditioning that moves it forward. However, the backlog of previous patterns continues and conflicts with the new pattern. And the stronger this conflict, it can hit people. That's the danger. There's no motivation. Like, it's another paradox. You don't need motivation as much as such in general when you are in your proper state. But perhaps motivation has its applicability, in my mind, when it's relevant, is for people to see what's possible. That is something that I think motivation makes it valuable. When you see what's possible, the ways of getting there, however, are oftentimes misinterpreted, I think. I'm saying it from the perspective of a person who was pusher. I'm a pusher. By design, I'm a pusher. I would always even craft my life into the scenarios in which it's like borderline, not failure, but borderline like super crisis. And then I would act. So I lived in this roller coaster, and that's also very nurtured in my family as well, because my parents, they were taking a tactic of fear, usually with me and my brother. So this fear and pushing, they recognize, for example, that something has a deadline, and there will be like super push with a lot of fear, with a lot of like mobilization going on. And that created this pattern. When you start feeling that you only achieve something when your actions are only worthy when they're associated with so much stress. And that stole a lot of my performance. Speaking of regrets of the past, I really wish that I was perhaps growing up in a more peaceful environment. And for myself, when I became a young adult, I wish I realized early on how to manage life from the perspective of peace. Because I saw people who were growing up in more strategic, calmer families who still carried values of good education, good academic performance, but So those children, those kids, those students, they were not tormented into performance. They were just going smoothly. There were some natural stresses, like before exams, for example, but for them it was not uh, all or nothing attitude. And those peaks, those extremes, they played a harmful role, I think, in my life. Even though they led to good results, they led to good outcomes, but on the long run, they led to crisis because I felt like I could not sustain living this way. I could not just be jumping from peak to peak through some crazy drop, through some crazy, like, I don't know, just well of depression, and also not being able to handle life outside of crisis. I literally did not have any concept of like how to live, how to feel in general when there's no crisis happening. So I would craft crisis. Outside of crisis, I was absolutely insufferable. And that was exhausting. Eventually it takes toll on your, like, how you feel yourself. You feel like you cannot afford that behavior anymore. And then it also is highly limiting as well because it's exhausting. Remember, we're talking about you achieve and hyperachieve, you try to adopt some new habit, for example, reading, and you're like, okay, I will read this night, I will read 200 pages, and I will just sacrifice my sleep and such. It builds the link between achievement and stress and physical exhaustion. So you start being fearful of experiences. And I worked with one person who, because of some super crazy life story, ended up working to pay off her childhood, ended up working for many years, like some crazy hours, super strenuous life. And then the person ended up fearing any work afterwards because it was a mega exhausting, devastating experience. So there is association that work is torture. Doing just anything is torture. So this complex can be very debilitating later in life as well. Unless you do work on unlearning the dysfunctional automation and adopting a functional automation, which isn't balancing those peaks. You're going from this like, whoa, manic and then depressive, manic, depressive, with some nonsense in between. You're going to smoothening those peaks and also lifting the curve towards just more joy. That's the strategy that I had to employ. So it's wonderful to be able to switch between that mode of operation when necessary in some actual critical situations, and also at the same time keep the resources to be able to allow enjoyment in life, because enjoyment, being able to experience joy, takes resources. It takes power. Pleasure takes resources. How to enter that state of constant ease that you talked about. What you're saying is actually making sense. Thank you. GCA. That's a methodical work. I would really encourage you to watch this video, 13 Steps of Tantra. And also, important note here, to enter the state of constant ease, the word constant ease, it may be an appealing thing for you right now, constant ease, if you're very tired, if you're very exhausted in general. Constant ease, I would reframe in a way that you are not intimidated by the difficulties, because difficulties will come and there will be responses. There will be responses when something extraordinary comes your way, right? You will not feel at ease as like, haha, who cares? When something extraordinary requiring your attention comes your way. But you will be at ease knowing that you can handle it, that you will not be hyper-reacting, that you will not be dragging. Because sense of non-ease happens when we have a very closed life, again, coming from our natural desire to defend ourselves, from preserve our psyche. And then any perturbation can snap you out. It tries to get into your critical reserves of energy. That's why it feels so intimidating. When you're not operating at the baseline, at the brink of your critical reserves being tapped into by any spontaneous thing from the world, when you're living above this line of being in critical state at all times, when you live above that, when you have this resource, those things, they don't affect you so profoundly anymore. So this is our goal. It's not the constant, you know how you can imagine a stoner sitting somewhere under a palm tree with constant ease. They completely try to strip away all life experiences other than sitting and destroying their brain with that joint 24/7. And like la la la, 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 singing some song, listening to some primitive music. La, la, la. That's a vegetable life. We're not talking about that. It's not that ease. It's sense of ease in the sense that you are. This is like critical reserves. Here. And if you have constant state of stress, constant stress or some anxiety, physical exhaustion, any perturbation will be boom. So you try to live numb. The natural reaction here is to build numbness. Numbness. Depression here happens because you cannot afford this dip. You cannot. When you're practicing practices, you lift this level away from the critical line, tapping into critical resources. You now can handle this thing. You have this whole bunch of resource here, and you can move on. You learn the skill of moving on, letting go. That is what I define as ease. Because otherwise, numbness is a protection reaction to just, no, don't touch, don't do anything. I hope that makes sense. Also, expression. Being able to hear yourself, expressing yourself. Собака пришла. Собачка пришла. It's our co-host, Kuzya, for everybody who is new. Not to be MP5, but I think you're lovely. Around half Polish, Jewish as well. I'm around half Polish, Jewish as well, Russian, a small piece, maybe genetic similar a little bit. Have a lovely day. You see, recognition works. Genetic recognition. Thank you, you too, by the way. So, tell me why you don't like Jordan Peterson. I think he just caters. I mean, his persona, media persona. I don't know. I don't like Jordan Peterson persona, let's say, because there's no way to tell if he's actual authentic Jordan Peterson or not. So let's not bash the poor guy. But what he says, I don't like about he has very strict dogma. He has very strict boundaries that he established as the forefront of his philosophy. So there's some gender things and so on. I don't like that because there's variability. And when somebody sets up a dogma as the foundation for their work, to me it discredits them because they don't allow the natural variability, which actually is a very important property of humanity, of humankind, and that also I thrive off as well. So there is some temptation for generalizations and also trying to squeeze people in some categories and pre-designed roles. I don't like it. Because Jordan Peterson has no idea what he's talking about. He probably hasn't. It's probably actually also very well curated. I don't like Jordan Peterson. I love you even more. You're like more like Alan Watts. Yeah, I actually my YouTube started throwing Alan Watts at me, and actually I'm like, I said that. That is exactly what I saw. It's exactly what I think. So yeah, it was a recent discovery for me. Chad, excellent. Alan Watts' constant focus on psychedelics is naive. I think if you're competent, self-willed, then it can be good, but if you're broken... Well, actually, I agree with that. I don't know that what he says about psychedelics, because um, I'm very against substances that intervene with the normal compiler of the brain, how brain compiles the reality. It can be really dangerous, devastating experience for a lot of people. Just, you know how gymnasts, for example, they have to train their entire life not to fall apart because they have such loose joints. The sockets, the ligaments are all so loose that should they stop training, should they stop having very tight muscle corset, everything starts being incredibly painful. And this is what happens, I think, with psyche that's tormented by those like unnatural interventions with any substances, with alcohol, weed, and hallucinogens and other chemistry. It can literally just create this hypermobility dysfunction of the reality compiler that may make a person on the one hand be like, wow, I'm so spiritual, I see the world for what it is now. On the other hand, they're unable to handle the world functionally anymore. There's states when one single pill of anything can cause a psychosis. It can cause a permanent deviations in compiler. There's phenomena like snowfall. Person may see snowfall their entire life. Or they may have any form of hallucinations permanently. So it's good to know. I mean, I didn't know about Alan Watts that. She's from Micronesia. Thanks. Yeah, I will be responding like this now. Thank you for an idea. Fruity Cutie, hello. She's all above. I was more talking about his take on the quacking mess. Not familiar. You were talking about how to feel okay now in the present. So it's easier to feel okay later and to receive the gifts or whatever each step grants me. Interesting. Are you from Ashkenazi Polish Jew? I am. No, nothing about that was said on my test. So I wouldn't be claiming anything. Doing work not on your terms is torture. Doing work for you is growth. And sometimes some people don't calculate, don't compute, for example. They go into the system, and I guess you're new, right, Zabu? If you're new, you didn't hear this concept. We have concept of social contracts. Some of them are non-existent, but people still adhere to them. But there are contracts that are pretty well written. So when you have work contract, employment contract, know exactly what you're doing and what you're receiving. And if you are not a slave, you will compute that I'm not just doing work because work is something fashionable. I know exactly why I do this work. You know what money you make and where you're going to spend it. So this is what makes you not a slave to the system, knowing exactly how what you're doing aligns with your goals. Which is, for example, okay, I receive this monetary equivalent of my labor, and I'm going to invest it in this and this and this and this. And then by this time, my financial goal will be met, and I'm going to move on to something, and I want to do these and these things. That's when it's healthy relationship with the system. When a person works in the system without awareness, without realizing what they do with their resources, how they locate their time, what their contract states, they're just taking whatever treatment comes their way, without any awareness, that's slavery. Because you're just servicing somebody else's goals without having your own. You don't know what you're doing with these resources. You can be bitching about your work, for example, because the work doesn't fulfill something for you. But the work isn't obliged to fulfill something for you. Oftentimes people are bitching about work because they have this invisible contract that they sign in their imagination, that the work should fulfill their ambitions, their creative ambitions, friendships, some social fulfillment, The work should fulfill their, for example, desire to be recognized, to be someone. Work is not the word, not entitled, is not obliged to do this. It's not in your contract. It's in your imaginary contract. And this is when it becomes not on your terms, because you're like, I'm enduring these stupid people here, these stupid rules. And for what? No one will even appreciate me. You're here to make money that you locate in accordance to your goals. That's it. Nobody said that you're going to feel like a sexy superstar, celebrity, and be fully fulfilled with your life, and everything in your life will just come together from this work. And that's the difference when it's on your terms and when it's not on your terms. The behavior in crisis became normalized. If you hadn't gone through that, you wouldn't be the pattern you are today, though. An entirely different person and this space-time meeting wouldn't exist. Of course, yeah, I mean, it's a given. I'll subscribe. Great combat cub. They are my ancestors and they were only people, smart people. Not like you, great. Don't be prejudiced, it's stupidity. Have a lovely stream. Goodbye, Morgan. Thank you for being with us tonight and giving your input, and we'll see you in the next stream. How do you manifest breaking addiction? I've accepted my addiction as part of my personality. My life is going well, so there's no real reason for me to abandon it. But there is a point where you said that there's no real reason, but you want to break free from it. Let's sort this out. It doesn't make sense to me. You want to break your addiction because of what? Your life is good, but so there's no real reason. How do you manifest breaking addiction? Why? It's a close-ended goal. You broke the addiction. It's happened. It's a one moment on the scale of time. What next? So this is a close-ended goal. You broke the addiction. The life afterwards is an open-ended goal. Like we just discussed earlier. Open-ended. What's this open-ended thing? You made the decision. You can break your addiction right now. You decide, okay, I broke the addiction. What comes next? Let's begin from that. Jordan Peterson is unconscious. There's no silence to his words or body language. By the way, Jordan Peterson, on this note, I have saved a painting. There's one painting from, who was the Spanish painter? Spanish painter. There is a painting of some exalted, either apostle or someone, in some religious ecstasy, identical to Jordan Peterson. It's like crying, almost crying, some like wet red eyes. And I have a screenshot somewhere with Jordan Peterson side by side, identical. Co-host is the best. 13 steps of Tantra also have relaxing aura. What practices enable you to have such a profoundness and peace in you? The practices, I mean, it's one practice, by the way, besides even Tantric thing, GCA. I want to advise to you something. Voice your desires, what you want. What you want. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Be unapologetic with what you want and be able to stand with it. That's one thing that can generate so much more peace. Because a lot of times we're shy with our desires when the boundaries are pushed inwards too much. We are not capable of voicing what we want. We're not capable of expressing ourselves. So this what you want and being not patient, getting rid of this mindset of patience, endurance, tolerance. At least in some area of life, at least opening the doors to the domain in which you can be voicing your discomfort and how you want to replace them with something else, will be a huge milestone. That's something that I do regularly. That's one of those things that I do regularly. But otherwise, there are practices that are, of course, relaxation practices. They will be on my website soon. Subscribe to my newsletter. And there's also, by the way, GCA. If you want to attend tomorrow, by the way, I still haven't talked about that. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. instead of the live stream, I'm conducting a free workshop in which I will show you the practice, some tantric practice, in which you can get the flavor of how some of the deeper practices work. So you can sign up to that, rawformoflife.com, appointments, free workshop tab, and sign up. And you will receive email with the details, I hope. So it's some automation that I set up, so we'll see. Recommend 13 steps of Tantra? Yes, it will give you the whole system, how it works in principle. But tomorrow you can join and we can talk in more privacy. It will be in Zoom. It will be through Zoom and through my website. So that's what we can do and hang out in more intimate circle. I don't know how many people will show up though, but even if one person shows up, I will be conducting it. So have you listened to Osho's commentary on Tantra? I know that Osho was created some cult, like some sex cult. That's what I know. That's the extent that I know. Also, traditional Russian, which is a very cool comment. Traditional Russian, Indian, Chinese households promote a culture of constant stress. How do we undo it? When you separate from that household, we recognize that it's our life. There's like nothing to do with our originating system. But also there is a cool video, a cool stream, which is how to leave the dysfunctional system, I think. That's exactly what we're discussing there. Drugs Ghost Psychosis went through 2 years dark times and then got saved and had sobered up for 5 years. Nice. Do you shampoo your eyebrows? only when I put gel into them. Because my gel is some slimy, I don't know, some flaxseed thing from some natural eco store. Feels like glue. Yeah. Today they're not gel though. I think you'd make a good life coach. Thank you, Leslie. I am Tantra coach. That's as close to life coaching, I guess, as you can get. GCA, yes, I will attend the workshop. Excellent, 5 p.m. New York time. Won't say New York Times. If there was a Disney princess like her back in the day, the world would be a different place. It's always respectable when you make choices that represent your authentic self. When you feel what feels right and what doesn't and act on it. Yeah, that's a good point as well. Authentic self, though, is such a comprehensive thing. What is authentic self, right? That's something that, remember we're talking about identify the pain, and pain will lead you to where you're not authentic. And that from that most prominent pain, you can start working towards your authenticity. Julie, thank you so much. Chad, did you say the workshop is through Zoom? I want to hear it, but I don't want to be on Zoom. Where do you want to be? Why do you not want to be on Zoom? That's an important feedback for me. Can you remind how to join the workshop? So go on my website. With addiction, by the way. My friend with addiction. Who wants to manifest. Was it clear? We're dealing with quitting addiction as a point in time. What's afterwards? So, raw form of life. .com. Then on raw form of life, you go to appointments. In appointments, there is a tab. There is 2 tabs like this. One tab is something something, and this one is free workshops, or something something will be here, and then free workshops. Free workshops. So this is where you need to be, and there's only one option. что мой пупсик? Поздненько уже, да? Надо собираться чуть-чуть уже и расходиться. Пятен мой. Ну, хороший. My coworker from Poland also named Maria. Мутятковый. Может, лодки-то вообще. I actually never been to Poland. Маленький Кузя. I love his name. Reminds me of the famous cartoon. I actually named him after домовенок Кузя. Because it was my nickname when I was in summer camp one year. And children, I had very poofy hair. Short haired. And children gave me this nickname. What's written on the board? This is how to access the free workshop that will be tomorrow for people who are affectionate about Tantra and want to learn more. Not for people who want to go and troll. Is that a Schnauzer? It's a Yorkie Poodle. So yeah, there was this cartoon called Домовенок Кузя that I really loved as well. And kids were starting to call me Домовенок Кузя and do this thing to my hair. So, because of my nickname, I named so my dog. Because he was also cute. So what we're going to do tomorrow in the workshop, there will be a practice that is practice with this divine union. There's a concept of divine union, which is the pulse of ecstasy coming from the connection and union between two. Is this the end of live stream? Close to it. Yeah, we'll do recap traditionally. Yes. So I'm telling about the workshop now. So there is this concept of divine union, which is the alliance, the union between two opposite, perhaps, polarities of the world. Those beautiful, the most energetically charged two polarities that creates the waves of ecstasy and love, the exemplar love that we can perceive. So we're tuned to that thing, and we can use this union as the tool to work with a variety of our experiences, with a variety of our imprints, traumatic events, current issues, current things that bother us. And we apply this divine union concept, visual energy, whatever energy we mean, vibe, let's say vibe. We apply it to heal the experiences. We apply it to rewrite the imprint of those experiences on us, using some specific techniques. And also I will be discussing how to set up a tantric ritual, tantric meditation, such that it's effective, such that it's not like something in passing. And why we need to frame it as a ritual, not as just something, you know, you can be mindlessly sipping on the tea, or you can create a tea ceremony. This is the difference between just discussing something and being inside of some work, inside of a meditation / ritual, whatever. When you have your morning coffee, for example, you love coffee, or you like morning tea, or whatever you like, maybe your breakfast is your sacred time. When you are on your own, when you open the curtains, you dress the table for yourself. You watch the sunrise in peace. Maybe you play some music or just enjoy the silence, and you are indulging in this. This is a ritual. This is an example of ritual. This is how you start the day. Using this ritual, you can always go back to certain good experiences, to your comfort. The importance of rituals have been accompanying humans throughout the entire history, because they allow us to enter certain states on demand. And with tantric visualization rituals, we're working with rewriting the experiences that left an imprint audially, visually, sensorily, emotionally, mindfully, through the concepts. So we enter the ritual space to activate the same senses, or maximum of the senses, to heal those experiences. So this is what we're going to do. Chad, you shouldn't worry about it. You can keep your video off. We actually will be keeping video off unless a person wants to enable it. So don't worry about video aspect. Your privacy will be protected. You can choose any nickname you want. Fruity Cutie, yeah, thank you for talking about it. Tomorrow's slot seems to be full. I'll fix that. You can email me then, GCA. I'll send you the link directly. It's not going to be a huge party, so the my email is this: info at rawformoflife, same thing.com. So just email me and I will send you an email back, okay? So this is info at rawformoflife without any punctuation.com, okay? Sounds good? Because it might be, I don't know if I set the restriction to be such that you can register in advance. So just email me, I'll send you the link to Zoom directly. 5 p.m. New York time. So you can edit your calendar. My voice sounds strange on calls, so I avoid phone calls or video calls. No, that's something that perhaps you can either... I mean, it's not necessarily that you will be talking much either, if you can chat. I feel like a lot of people who understand this aren't educated enough to articulate. What? Jim, I'm not a psychologist. I am a physicist, engineer, and I'm also Tantra coach, Tantra therapist with a certificate. I'm a certified Tantra coach, Tantra therapist. Tiva, okay, oh, Kiva, great. Even if it's an accepting environment, I just don't feel comfortable. Again, your camera can be off. I reviewed them and I don't have any questions. Awesome. Hippocrates, hello. Manifestation is the topic. Thank you, Jay Montan, what will help us to start reviewing our today's talk. And Zane Kinsey, I find your content very informative. I'm very happy about it. So, let's do the recap, and we're going to part our ways. For that, though, I will need to unplug my mic because I need to charge my phone. We had a rule before that I would be streaming up until my mic dies, or my phone dies. But then, we started going on longer and longer streaks. But today we're actually going with very good tempo. I'm very happy about it. It feels like we did a very great job. We did very good work with the chat. And at the same time, we stayed on track the whole time. That's unprecedented. K1Z3N, my parents manifested me through a very non-sophisticated ritual, I should say. This is nice when the recap just starts naturally, yes. So manifestation was actually a loaded. Everybody wrote my email, right? Info at rawformoflife, just like my YouTube, my website. Manifestation. What did we cover today? We started from very, very bottom of this thing. We started from how there are comedies that are talking of be afraid of your desires. You want to be able, for example, you want to have a very beautiful house, but maybe you will get a haunted house. Maybe you will get this house through losing some of your dear relative, something like that. Or maybe you will get this skill, this gift of being able to eat as much as you want, but at the same time you will lose the ability to enjoy this food. Or maybe you'll have infinite intimacy with people, but then you will be some super abject person, and so on. So all those caveats. And at the same time, manifestation can turn into being obsessive with manifestation. Like, I need to behave a certain way at all times. I need to curate my thoughts. I need to have extreme level of internal censorship to, God forbid, not slip off this journey of manifestation. So we have two polarities, two types of neurosis. When I am scared of my desires, and when I am too into my desires, and every single move of mine comes from some place of where I am constantly monitoring myself, that I forget to enjoy my life. So these are two polarities that we discussed in the beginning. Then we moved on to grounding this topic. That every event is either delta mass or delta energy or conversion of energy and mass in some specific location. So we're talking about transfer of mass, transfer of energy. And that is by definition work. Actual physical work. How much work can a person can perform? A person can perform some residual amount of work left after their base metabolism, like we discussed yesterday, after their base metabolism, regeneration needs, and survival needs. This is how much free energy we will have in the end. And we will discuss all the limitations yesterday. But it all boils down to work. Thank you, Fruity Cutie. Thank you so much for your contribution. Fun stream. Always love the content. Looking forward to the next ones. Thank you so much, Cutie Cutie. So, we're dealing with work, with free energy demands. It's not that events are coming through, we visualize something and it comes to be. No, it always boils down to work. We need to displace something. Then, after we have grounded this topic, we went on to talk about the methodology of it. There was some amazing discussion with some that I don't remember what it was about. When the person challenged, when she said that manifestation isn't real, and I'm really pissed that I cannot remember what we're talking about. But I remember this drawing with the river of life, with a person holding on to it. And the river of life is trying to carry them away, and they're in panic just holding on to the stick. I have no idea what it was about. But then we're talking about the different, another polarity of people coming to manifestation from the point of lack, devastation, from the dark tunnel. They're like under super pressure, they're compressed, depressed, they're in total disconnect with themselves, total numbness, and they're unable to take any perturbation that life can throw at them. And we were talking about manifestation from this perspective. When we're expanding outwards, when we're comfortable with our life, when we can push our boundaries outwards through creative action, when we're relaxed, when we have this resource. When we have this resource, manifestation looks totally differently. And then we came to understanding that manifestation here is the goal there and then, something desirable. Manifestation here is a lifestyle. It's just a part of life. It's a natural flow of life. When you're just doing from feeling from doing, you're in the stream. So this is a major difference. When you are mentally well, when you are mentally when you're fully embodied, when you're mentally comfortable, when you are in a good spot, not from this compressed, depressed point that cannot take anything in life. You're now in a relaxed, expansive, playful, curious, lively state. This is when the magic happens. And we discussed why and how. Because here you have resource to just go and try. Go and do things with ease. Everything that you would want naturally is already achieved here. You have Garden of Eden right here. In your body. In your mind. You're just comfortable. You can access your Garden of Eden. So everything that comes is just a pleasant add-on. The goals become open-ended. Here, you're acting from the point of luck. You want to fulfill something. You want to satisfy some basic need here. And that's where the relevance of manifestation becomes super important. If you don't achieve that there and then, it's a crushing idea. It's a crushing idea to assume that this person will not achieve something. Here, it becomes that even if you don't achieve it, there's ease. What you want to manifest, it's not crushing. It's the work in progress. It's the process. It's the process of life. It's the flow of life. And then we started moving on how to find your authentic desires, because Do you want that mansion? Do you want that car? What is that about? Do you want that bag of money? Like, we started understand. We started bringing up this understanding that there are open-ended goals and there are close-ended goals that serve as instruments. So we need to identify our open-ended goals, and then the methodology for that was to start writing the list of desires, the wish list. And we need to start. If you don't know where to start, even when you don't hear yourself at all, the first point where to start writing the desires was to start with the body. Every time we start with the body, we fulfill the desires and needs of the body. And we introduce the practice in which, on a daily basis, you start connecting with your body's needs. Right now, you can connect with your body's needs. Are your pants too tight? Do you need to use bathroom? Do you need to drink? Do you need to change your pose? Do you want fresher air? Do you want to move? Do you want to stretch? What do you want right now in your body? And we had a very important block of removing the self-sabotage factor. When you teach your brain that the signals of your body, the most profound desires, are recognized through this practice. We launch this feedback loop that my body wants something, signals something, and I act upon that. That was a huge milestone on the way of working on your desires and manifesting. Then we analyze, we go and start writing our list of desires further. From something very realistic to something imaginative, something that's a little bit maybe doesn't feel like a part of your reality yet. And then we work on our desires. We create a table. We create a table in which we analyze our desires. What are the repeated patterns? We classify them by domains. We identify repetitions. We look at what is my priority in these desires. Then we see what desires we can voice only as don't want. And we start identifying those. Then we see what desires are close-ended, instrumental. As in the analogy of I want a toolbox. I want a box of carpentry tools. As opposed to the desires that are open-ended. And when we identify close-ended desires, what are they supposed to lead us to? We need to reformulate them into open-ended desires. Not with preserving them. Closed-ended desires are still very valuable to have. But what follows them? As in the example from my new friend with orange avatar, Jay Montan. I want this to happen. Close-ended goal. The whole life is past that point. What's gonna be there? What freedoms? We can reframe it as what freedoms, what creative freedoms this close-ended desire will open to you. So this is what we work on when we sort through our desires. And then to enable the work on more complex, more creative desires that are past our body level, we start employing Tantric practices. The ones that help you to take that barrier between you and what you want to be doing. Desires in general, we reframe it, what do you want to be doing? This is the definition of open-ended desires. What freedoms of doing do you have now? So when you want to be doing something, when you're coming from your habitual, traumatized perhaps state, they're perceived as a barrier. I don't even know the height of this barrier. Through Tantric practices, we start identifying the ways to either tunnel through this barrier or have enough energy to go over this barrier, not notice the barrier, or walk around this barrier. So we do Tantric practices such as some somatic practices that allow you to lift your vitality, and practices that allow you to tap into your personas that contain a lot of the potential. I said that there are two classes of practice, but in fact there are three classes of practice. One would be breathing. Breathing. That's first order practices. The breathing practice, then personas. Personas, facets. Where did I put slash here? Facets. Facets of vitality. That's the second one. And then I just slipped out of my mind completely. The third class of practices, let me think a little bit. Now, there will be practices, yes, that are visualizations. But not visualizations when you are imagining your goal, necessarily. But visualizations in which you find a method in your psyche to getting to where you want to be. Just finding that method, this unique method, this missing thing. And also, of course, conversational means, analytical tools will be also very happy or helpful. Analytical tools. Through analytical tools, we can find what are the beliefs, what are the reasons, like in the rational, perceptible scope, where we can find some inhibitions. Maybe this barrier is fully artificial. It is artificial indeed. Because there's no way if you have, imagine how it happens usually. The person has themselves, their like some expertise, their desire, and the toolbox. But there is some barrier inside of their brain, in some cartoon inside. That's what oftentimes happens. Or sometimes, however, there are some barriers that are physical in nature. For example, with weight loss example. This is weight loss, but it's still behavioral in most cases. In most cases, weight loss has behavioral, psychological origin. Psychological tools to achieve that goal. So that weight loss may require also behavioral changes. So it will be two-step problem then. But nevertheless, we need to find a resource to exercise the desired, very constructive behavior for that. So this is what we've covered today. I think that's it. And I hope I didn't leave anything behind. So let's see the chat. How do you manifest a cup of coffee with you? It will be pretty difficult. You'll need to manifest, I guess, plane tickets and stuff. Okay, guys, you were discussing something in the meantime. GCA, just quickly, could you go over your profession if you're comfortable? Like you said, you're a physicist engineer. It's fascinating. Thank you. So I graduated from Moscow State University in 2015 with physics degree, physics major. I guess could say that mathematics minor probably, but mathematics was on the harder side for me. To abstract mathematics was kind of, as I said before, those abstract things are very fascinating, but sometimes it requires extra resources for that. So then with physics, I was leaning towards applied physics. So when we had to choose the field that would graduate with our diploma with, I went to bio, nano, materials, and then I think I first went to solar cells. Did my first coursework in solar and semiconductor. And then I moved on to working also in semiconductor nanoparticles applied to biomedical applications. And there was, the point of work was to design biodegradable nanoparticles that could be functionalized either with drugs or that could be for targeted drug delivery, or that could be activated through some non-invasive means, and then they could degrade, because there are gold nanoparticles that are, I think, employed for cancer therapies, for example, tumor removal, but gold nanoparticles, they accumulate in the body and they have secondary toxicity, so it's not a viable path for that. So we went with biodegradable, biocompatible nanoparticles, which were oxides, silica basically silicon oxide and germanium oxide. So silica in general can be shaped into nanoparticles, porous nanoparticles, that pores can be filled with drugs, or on the other hand, those nanoparticles, they can be a thermal agent, or they can be oxidative agent, because tumors, they don't like, basically, they don't like oxygen, they don't like oxygenation. That's why there's some alternative therapies, for example, including chlorophyll, that starts producing oxygen, and so you can find those things online. Silicon nanoparticles, they could have some potential for getting this free oxygen that would destroy the tumor tissues, because also those nanoparticles, they selectively accumulate and damage mutated tissues. On the other hand, there was also study of using those nanoparticles coupled with ultrasound, because ultrasound, as you know, those oscillations, they heat the tissues, and when the tissue is saturated with nanoparticles, oscillations from these nanoparticles, they create heat. So the tumor could be destroyed with localized heat. So that was another concept. I was working on germanium nanoparticles, acquisition of germanium nanoparticles through electric ablation. Basically, you blast high frequency electric current through bulk piece of germanium crystal, and then you do a wash off, and that produces the solution of germanium nanoparticles. So we're doing characterization of that. And then with solar cells back in Russia, when I was a young student, I was doing I was working on dynamics of degradation of amorphous silicon solar cells. And then I moved to the US, and I was also considering biophysics and medical physics field, and I was considering at the same time semiconductor devices, solar cells, as my field of choice. So I went to engineering. I wanted more applied physics, so I went to engineering. And I went to the first university where I had psychopath advisor. I went to psychopath also that was lying to me during the interviews, I found out. I went to that university to work on DNA-guided self-assembly of nanoparticles, which is also used for drug delivery and such. It was a very fascinating project for me because I remember I built the chemical lab there, and I was working with, you can order DNA strands, complementary DNA chains from some services, and you can actually create those solutions. You can attach those DNA chains, the strands, onto nanoparticles, making such hedgehog with DNA strands. And then because you ordered complementary DNA chains, they stick together to form the helix. But when you're working with nanoparticles, this reaction is thermal, so you can have superlattice of nanoparticles that's held together like zippers with DNA strands. But this reaction can be they can dissociate and reconnect based on the temperature, I think, and different like chemical conditions as well. So you can control this process of connection and disconnection, and based on the lengths and properties of those DNA strands, you can create different superlattices with different optical and thermal properties. So that was the work that we were performing there. And also we were generating two-dimensional materials in that lab. But then we were working also, when I switched to another university, to another institute, I was working on space solar cells. And with space solar cells, I had actually, my thesis is very funny because it contains probably 5 chapters. I think 5th chapter I just didn't include. So I had several projects there, and I worked on it was not bio. Which bio? It's no longer bio. They were high efficiency space solar cells that were resistant to radiation. That's what we're working on, and those were enhanced with quantum dots and quantum wells. Sounds scary, but in fact it's just low dimensionality layers or clumps of material, I guess, where they exhibit different properties at that point. And at the same time, I had some grant, the short-term grant for nanowire work for terrestrial applications of solar cells. And those were nanowire solar cells. And that could be put on conventional silicon solar cells that you can see in households. So that work was super cool, and I had still had some ideas for that work, and I still hold on to it because this work with nanowires can be expanded to multiple groups of devices, and I still have this itch that I would want to work more on that. So that's my thing. And then my career wise, I was working to work on this nanowire project in general in solar cells. There's a huge component of design involved. So part of my work and project management was to design those solar cells and optimize them. You don't do this in the lab because there are too many variables. We use simulation software, and throughout my entire grad school I was using this simulation software, and then they hired me. They invited me to interview with them. So they hired me, and that work was consulting. I was basically consulting researchers and corporate clients on the usage of that software. So I was a consultant. And then I decided to have fun. After they, for probably several months, kept me in limbo of like, we will fire you, we will not fire you because of non-compliance with 2020-2021 potion. So that was my journey. So I was kind of preparing to do my own thing at that point. That's it. I think Shuriken and Nastya would make a great couple. Would make Hippocrates would make a great quadruple. Thank you so much, Kiva. Thank you so much. Скоро будет 7000. Такая красивая цифра. Вы огромный лучик солнца в этом мире. И вам обнимашек целый воз. Have a good night, madam, and everyone. Мадам, я очень рада, что ваш канал растет. Спасибо большое, Киева. Очень приятно. Тоже цветочки и любви. I would read more on it. I'm pursuing computer science engineering, but I'm fascinated by biomedical engineering. Also, you seem to have so much knowledge. It's so cool. I'd love to collaborate on some research paper and such. Yeah, it would be nice. I'm not affiliated with any institution right now. I don't know if I can publish, but yeah, it would be fun. I miss research sometimes. I don't know actually how it works now with the AI. Because I don't know how it morphed in the recent years. When I was leaving corporate world, it was just getting implemented in some capacity. Now with the resurgence with, I don't know how it works for research. So if you would want to discuss your research, it would be really interesting to know. Perhaps you can send me an email if you would like to chat, so I read my emails, people. I read my emails, except for, I glanced through that one email. There was a very cute gentleman who came to my comments that ended up hidden. Who came to my comments to announce to me that this gentleman wrote me an email about rough, some like intimate play or whatever. And I happened to find that email. I forgot about that comment, and recently I checked my spam on my Info or Form of Life account. I checked my spam and actually discovered that masterpiece. That would be... I glanced through it again in diagonal because I kind of got the gist of it, that it's probably some scenario for black and orange website. But yeah, so that's something that I probably won't engage with. Because it's some I guess it's some form of new level of a dick pic, probably. That's how it can be. But yeah. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, we can publish without association with the university. Cool. Sorry I missed tonight. Super busy day for me. Get it done. You missed out on so much, but as always, you are not missing out. You're always having the recording. Oh man, people. Yes, Shuriken. Oh my god, oh my god, Kiva! Ah, you just reminded me. There was some app in which there was this super funny. There was a group of people in the chat room, in the voice chat room, and they were talking. I think they were learning. They were learning languages, and there was this. I don't know what language it was. There was this Jewish guy, who was speaking some other language, but then out of nowhere would just be like, oh my boy, or bоже мой, bоже мой. It was so cute. Hello everyone who is just joining. Fruity cutie, yes, practice Russian. Everyone start practicing Russian, I think, in our community. If you don't mind me asking, how old are you? I'm eternal. How is that? I'm putting 60-hour weeks on my electronic music and 20-hour part-time work. I'm hoping to sign into label soon. I wish I had the desire to study academical subject, but I just don't have this passion. Well, screw that then. You know what you want to be doing. So, getting better, Fruity Kitty. Shut down just like that. Alrighty, guys. Oh, is there somewhere I could read about your previous work? Yes. I don't know if I have my name in my description of the channel. You can just search on Google Scholar, I guess. Google Scholar, you can see my thesis. Actually, sometimes I beat myself up because after I worked in that software company, I realized that my simulations would be so much better if I was more proficient in using the software. So I have this self-conscious thing going on, but Google Scholar, yes. But my name is too long and too hard to spell or to do something with it. So if it's in my description of the channel, go see there. I think my name is there. Что такое? My dog is saying that we should finish this stream. He's having this ultrasonic panic. Nastya, you mentioned earlier that you like water and rocks. Have you swum the springs of Florida when you were in the US? No, I didn't. Anastasia, yes, but double I. Double I's, this convention. And, yeah, you can Google me. Oh, I'd love to check out your music too, Zabulu. Yeah, actually, Zabulu, if you want to drop your whatever project you're working on, the appropriate name to search for you would be also neat. If you're willing, if you have it already prepared and published. For anyone who doesn't like the stream, make sure to do so before 10. Skiva, thank you. My fellows tell me that your stream is soon coming to an end, sister. Yes, my canine is... Что ты делаешь, а, барагозный? Мячик дай мне, пожалуйста. Мяч принеси. Давай мяч. Неси мяч сюда. Говнюк. Anthony. Good luck with that. So, let's end here. It was wonderful stream. Thank you everyone who joined today. Thank you everyone who contributed today. Kiva, thank you so much. I think I said that about 3 times in the live stream, yeah. The channel description doesn't have your full name. Just email me, I will tell you. I will send you the link So don't worry about it. We can find it. So good night, everyone, and enjoy your tonight and the first half of tomorrow. And actually, tomorrow we're not meeting here. Everyone who wants to join the workshop tomorrow, you can email me. Alright, I'm sorry, missed nearly the whole thing again. It's been a busy couple of weeks. Sure, can don't worry, we're in touch. Good night, everyone. Team. Bye bye.